the Narcissistic Wife Survive and Thrive Guide. From emotional survival to clarity, stability, and personal power.
Welcome to New School Wisdom. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on any of our latest videos. Stay New School wise. Now back to the video.
Chapter 1. The Silent Erosion. When Love Turns into Psychological Control. Understanding emotional manipulation in marriage. Most men do not walk into marriage expecting to slowly lose themselves. They expect partnership, loyalty, shared growth, and emotional support. What many do not expect is the gradual erosion of confidence, clarity, and identity that can occur when manipulation becomes embedded in daily life. The silent erosion does not begin with shouting or chaos. It begins with subtle corrections, small criticisms, and moments of confusion that feel minor at first. Over time, those moments compound into something heavier: self-doubt. Emotional manipulation in marriage rarely announces itself clearly. It disguises itself as concern, correction, emotional sensitivity, or even vulnerability. The result is a steady destabilization of your internal compass. When a wife exhibits narcissistic patterns, the relationship often becomes less about partnership and more about control. Control does not always look aggressive. It often looks like influence disguised as love. What narcissistic patterns look like in intimate partnerships? In public, she may appear charming, competent, and emotionally aware. In private, the dynamic can shift dramatically. What appears to others as strength can become domination behind closed doors. Narcissistic patterns in marriage typically include an excessive need for admiration, hypersensitivity to criticism, and a chronic inability to accept responsibility. Disagreements rarely end in mutual resolution. Instead, they end with you apologizing, even when the issue began elsewhere. You may notice that your needs are consistently minimized. Your exhaustion is dismissed. Your concerns are reframed as character flaws. Over time, the relationship becomes emotionally one-sided. Her emotions dictate the temperature of the home. Your role becomes that of regulator, appeaser, or stabilizer. You may start walking on eggshells without realizing it. You rehearse conversations in your mind before speaking. You measure your tone carefully to avoid triggering escalation. These are not signs of healthy compromise. They are signs of psychological pressure. Why intelligent, capable men get trapped. Many men assume manipulation only happens to weak or unaware individuals. That assumption keeps them silent. The truth is far more complex. Intelligent, capable men often get trapped precisely because of their strengths. They are patient. They are problem solvers. When conflict arises, they look inward first. They assume there must be something they can fix. They believe that if they communicate better, work harder, or show more understanding, the tension will dissolve. This mindset makes them vulnerable to chronic blame shifting. Instead of recognizing manipulation, they double down on self-improvement. They become over-responsible for problems they did not create. A narcissistic partner often thrives in this dynamic. She may frame herself as misunderstood, emotionally wounded, or perpetually stressed. Your empathy becomes the tool used against you. You begin to interpret control as emotional fragility. You excuse disrespect because you believe she is going through something. You stay longer than you should because you believe endurance equals loyalty. Intelligent men are not trapped because they are foolish. They are trapped because they believe in repair. They assume effort leads to resolution. In a narcissistic dynamic, effort often leads to deeper entanglement, the slow loss of confidence and identity. The erosion does not happen overnight. It happens through repetition. It happens through subtle reframing of who you are. You may start hearing phrases like, "You're too sensitive," or "You always overreact." Eventually, you begin questioning your emotional responses. You no longer trust your instincts. When your achievements are minimized, your confidence slowly declines. When your concerns are mocked, your voice softens. When your boundaries are ignored, your standards lower. Identity erosion often shows up in small changes. You stop engaging in hobbies you once enjoyed. You withdraw from friendships because it creates tension at home. You may begin filtering your personality. You speak less. You avoid topics that previously felt normal. Over time, you forget what unfiltered authenticity feels like. You adapt to survive the emotional climate. You become smaller to maintain peace. This is not maturity. This is adaptation under pressure. The difference between conflict and control. All marriages contain conflict. Conflict is not the problem. Control is. Healthy conflict includes mutual accountability. Both partners can admit mistakes. Both partners seek resolution rather than dominance. In a narcissistic dynamic, conflict becomes a weapon. Arguments are less about solving issues and more about asserting superiority. Discussions turn into cross-examinations. Instead of addressing behavior, the focus shifts to your character. Instead of resolving the issue, the conversation spirals into your past failures. Instead of mutual understanding, there is emotional exhaustion. Control often appears as emotional punishment. Silence becomes a tool. Affection becomes conditional. You may find that love feels transactional. Respect feels temporary. Peace feels fragile. Conflict should strengthen clarity. Control erodes it. Emotional conditioning and behavioral shaping. One of the most overlooked aspects of narcissistic marriage is conditioning. Over time, you are trained, not through obvious threats, but through emotional consequences. When you disagree, you are met with withdrawal or outrage. When you comply, you are rewarded with temporary warmth. This pattern reinforces compliance. You begin to anticipate her reactions before making decisions. You alter behavior to avoid escalation. You unconsciously prioritize emotional stability over personal truth. This is behavioral shaping. It mirrors psychological conditioning patterns found in high-control environments. The reward-punishment cycle keeps you invested. Because the relationship is intimate, the conditioning becomes deeply personal. It reshapes how you see yourself. It reshapes how you see love. The role of shame and guilt. Shame is a powerful tool in narcissistic dynamics. It keeps you quiet. It keeps you doubting. You may be told that you are emotionally inadequate. You may be accused of failing as a husband. You may be blamed for her emotional instability. Over time, guilt becomes constant. You apologize quickly. You assume responsibility reflexively. Even when you know something feels wrong, guilt overrides clarity. You choose silence over confrontation. You choose accommodation over authenticity. Shame isolates you. You hesitate to speak openly with friends. You fear being misunderstood. Isolation strengthens control. Public image versus private reality. Another painful layer of the silent erosion is the split between public image and private experience. Outsiders may see a confident, composed couple. You may see tension, unpredictability, and emotional volatility. If she is charismatic publicly, your concerns may feel unbelievable. You begin questioning whether anyone would take you seriously. You fear being dismissed. This duality deepens confusion. You may wonder if the problem is you. You may assume you are exaggerating. The contrast between public praise and private criticism destabilizes perception. You feel alone in your experience. You begin doubting your narrative. Trauma, bonding, and emotional attachment. Despite the pain, leaving often feels impossible. This is not weakness. It is trauma bonding. Trauma bonding occurs when cycles of affection and distress create intense emotional attachment. The brain becomes conditioned to seek relief from the same source that causes the pain. Moments of warmth feel euphoric after conflict. The inconsistency strengthens attachment. You crave the good version of her. You hold on to early memories of connection. The hope that things will return to how they once were keeps you engaged. You invest more energy trying to restore what felt real. You confuse intensity with intimacy. This cycle deepens emotional dependence. Recognizing the early warning signs. Awareness begins with recognition. You must identify patterns without minimizing them. You must observe behavior without filtering it through guilt. Repeated blame shifting is not normal conflict. Chronic invalidation is not emotional sensitivity. Conditional affection is not love. If your self-esteem has steadily declined, pay attention. If you feel anxious before normal conversations, pay attention. If you consistently feel responsible for maintaining peace, pay attention. Recognition does not require immediate action. It requires honest assessment. The psychological toll on the nervous system. Living in unpredictable emotional environments activates stress responses. Your nervous system remains alert. Your body remains braced. You may experience insomnia. You may experience tension, headaches, or digestive issues. You may feel constant fatigue. Chronic stress changes mental clarity. Decision-making becomes harder. Emotional resilience weakens. You are not simply overreacting. Your body is responding to prolonged instability. The silent erosion is physiological as much as emotional. The turning point of awareness. The first shift towards survival and stability begins with clarity. Clarity does not require anger. It requires honesty. You must acknowledge what is happening without exaggeration or denial. You must separate compassion from self-sacrifice. You must reclaim your perception. Awareness restores mental footing. It reduces confusion. It replaces emotional fog with discernment. From that place, you can begin rebuilding stability, moving from survival to strategy. Survival mode is reactive. Strategy is deliberate. The shift begins internally. You stop chasing emotional approval. You start observing patterns objectively. You reduce reactive engagement. This does not mean hostility. It means composure. When you understand the silent erosion, you stop personalizing every attack. You stop absorbing every accusation. You begin protecting your internal world. The path forward begins with emotional steadiness. It begins with refusing to shrink further. It begins with quiet strength. This chapter marks the recognition phase. Recognition restores clarity. Clarity restores power.
Introduction to the Narcissistic Wife Survive and Thrive Guide. From emotional survival to clarity, stability, and personal power.
The Narcissistic Wife Survive and Thrive Guide is a structured roadmap for men, navigating emotional manipulation, gaslighting, conflict cycles, and psychological instability within marriage. It exposes subtle control patterns that slowly erode confidence and identity, while equipping readers with enforceable boundaries, communication discipline, and emotional regulation systems. Rather than encouraging retaliation, the guide teaches calm authority and strategic leadership. It focuses on nervous system stability and strategic leadership under pressure. From protecting children to strengthening financial awareness and legal preparedness, each chapter builds practical structure to move from reactive survival into personal power. The Thrive framework shifts men through daily routines, identity rebuilding, and a defined code. Recovery evolves into expansion as readers reclaim purpose, clarity, and long-term direction. This is not emotional venting. It is emotional training. It replaces chaos with steady strength. Purchase this digital playbook today or gain access via our New School Wisdom Gold membership. It's time for you to level up and become New School wise. Let's get started.
Chapter 2. The War on Your Reality. Reclaiming your mind from gaslighting and psychological distortion. Gaslighting and reality distortion. Gaslighting is not simply lying. It is the systematic manipulation of another person's perception of reality. Over time, it causes you to distrust your own memory, judgment, and emotional responses. In a narcissistic marriage, gaslighting rarely begins with obvious deception. It begins with subtle contradictions. It escalates into outright denial of events you clearly remember. You may hear statements like, "That never happened," or "You're imagining things." At first, you assume miscommunication. Later, you begin doubting your own clarity. Gaslighting works because it destabilizes your internal compass. When your perception is repeatedly challenged, you become less confident in asserting truth. You start seeking validation from the very person distorting reality. This dynamic creates psychological dependence. You become unsure of what is real without her confirmation. Your mind becomes a battlefield. The mechanics of gaslighting. Gaslighting follows a recognizable pattern. First, an event occurs. Then, the event is denied or reframed. You might recall a specific conversation. She might respond with calm certainty that the conversation never happened. If you persist, she may escalate by accusing you of exaggeration or instability. The confidence with which distortion is delivered makes it powerful. It is not presented as uncertainty. It is presented as fact. Over time, repeated contradictions create confusion. You begin replaying memories in your mind. You question details you once felt certain about. Gaslighting often includes shifting narratives. The story changes slightly each time. When you point out inconsistencies, you are accused of being argumentative. The goal is not resolution. The goal is dominance over interpretation. When your memory is constantly questioned, memory is central to identity. If you cannot trust your recollection, you struggle to trust yourself. Gaslighting attacks that foundation. You may begin documenting conversations just to confirm what was said. You may replay events repeatedly, searching for errors in your perception. You may apologize for misunderstandings that were not yours. The exhaustion is mental. You feel drained not because of physical labor, but because you are constantly defending reality. You are not simply disagreeing. You are fighting to remain sane. Over time, you may start prefacing statements with uncertainty. I might be wrong, but becomes common language. Your confidence in speaking plainly diminishes. This is the erosion of cognitive stability. How reality becomes unstable. Gaslighting thrives in emotional intensity. Arguments escalate quickly. When emotions run high, perception becomes easier to distort. You may be accused of yelling when you were calm. You may be told you were aggressive when you were measured. Your tone is redefined for you. Eventually, you begin adjusting your behavior preemptively. You soften your voice excessively. You avoid confrontation entirely. The instability is not accidental. It is strategic. If your version of events is unreliable, her version becomes dominant. You may begin feeling like you live in two realities. There is what you experienced, and there is what she insists happened. The constant conflict between the two creates psychological fatigue. Emotional amplification as a tool. Another method of distortion involves emotional amplification. Minor issues are exaggerated into major offenses. Small misunderstandings become moral failures. When emotions are intensified, your focus shifts from facts to damage control. You move quickly to soothe the situation. The original issue disappears under emotional chaos. This tactic prevents calm analysis. It forces reaction rather than reflection. It trains you to prioritize emotional temperature over truth. Over time, you may associate truth-telling with conflict. You avoid stating facts because you anticipate escalation. You choose silence instead of clarity. That silence deepens distortion. Why you begin apologizing for things you didn't do. One of the clearest signs of gaslighting is reflexive apology. You apologize to restore peace. You apologize to end tension. Even when you know you did not act wrongly, the emotional pressure pushes you toward concession. You choose harmony over accuracy. You sacrifice truth for stability. This pattern reinforces distortion. If you accept blame repeatedly, the narrative solidifies. Your identity shifts subtly toward the one who is wrong. Eventually, you may internalize the narrative. You begin believing you are overly sensitive. You assume your reactions are flawed. Gaslighting does not require you to fully believe the lie. It only requires you to surrender your defense of truth. The psychological impact of chronic doubt. Chronic doubt affects more than memory. It affects decision-making. It affects confidence. When your perception is repeatedly challenged, you hesitate. You second-guess choices. You delay action. This hesitation may extend beyond the marriage. You may doubt professional decisions. You may avoid asserting yourself socially. Gaslighting spreads. It does not stay confined to arguments. It infiltrates your entire cognitive framework. You may begin seeking excessive reassurance from others. You may feel anxious when making simple choices. You may feel mentally fragmented. This is the toll of repeated reality distortion, isolation, and narrative control. Gaslighting often intensifies in isolation. If you have withdrawn from friends or family, external validation decreases. Her narrative becomes dominant. When conflicts arise, she may present her version of events to others first. You become defensive before you even speak. You are positioned as unstable or overly reactive. This external reinforcement strengthens internal doubt. You question whether others see you the way she describes. You fear speaking out. Isolation protects distortion. Without outside perspective, the narrative feels unchallenged. Silence becomes the default. Rebuilding trust in your own perception. Recovery begins with self-trust. You must rebuild confidence in your own memory and emotional awareness. This requires deliberate practice. Start by observing patterns objectively. Instead of debating every distortion, document events privately. Write down conversations immediately after they occur. Documentation is not about revenge. It is about clarity. Seeing patterns on paper strengthens cognitive stability. Next, validate your emotional responses internally. Ask yourself whether your reaction aligns with the situation. Trust your instincts before seeking her approval. Finally, seek grounded external perspective when possible. Not for gossip, but for reality anchoring. Trusted counsel can help confirm what you already sense. External clarity reduces internal confusion. The difference between disagreement and distortion. Not every conflict is gaslighting. Healthy disagreement allows space for different interpretations. Gaslighting denies your interpretation entirely. In healthy conflict, both parties may remember events differently, but acknowledge the possibility of misunderstanding. In distortion, your memory is dismissed as defective. Your credibility is attacked rather than the issue discussed. Healthy partners seek clarity. Manipulative partners seek control over narrative. The distinction matters. Recognizing this difference prevents overcorrection. It allows you to identify manipulation without labeling every disagreement as abuse. Emotional grounding techniques. When distortion escalates, grounding becomes essential. Your nervous system must stabilize before your mind can respond clearly. Slow breathing reduces physiological stress. Pausing before responding reduces reactive engagement. Stating facts calmly preserves dignity. You do not need to convince her of truth. You need to maintain your own clarity. Your internal steadiness matters more than her acknowledgement. Grounding also includes limiting engagement. If conversations repeatedly spiral into denial, step away. You are not obligated to debate reality endlessly. Calm withdrawal from distortion is strength, not weakness. Reclaiming narrative authority. Narrative authority means you define your experience without surrendering it to someone else's reinterpretation. You do not accept labels that do not fit. You do not internalize accusations without reflection. When she says, "You're always angry," examine the statement objectively. Is it consistent with your behavior? Or is it an exaggeration meant to destabilize you? You are allowed to hold your perspective without hostility. You are allowed to disagree without self-doubt. You are allowed to say, "That is not how I experienced it." Narrative authority does not require argument. It requires conviction, refusing the endless debate. Gaslighting thrives on prolonged engagement. The longer the argument continues, the more confused you become. Exhaustion increases compliance. You do not need to win every debate. You need to refuse participation in circular distortion. You can disengage respectfully. Statements like, "We see this differently," close the loop. They avoid escalation. They protect your mental energy. Endless debate drains clarity. Bounded engagement preserves it. The first signs of cognitive restoration. As you rebuild self-trust, subtle changes occur. You speak more clearly. You apologize less reflexively. You recognize patterns more quickly. You feel less compelled to defend every detail. You observe distortion without absorbing it. Cognitive restoration does not eliminate conflict. It restores internal alignment. You feel grounded even if she disagrees. This stability reduces emotional volatility. It reduces panic during arguments. It strengthens composure. From confusion to clarity. Gaslighting thrives in confusion. Clarity dismantles its power. Clarity comes from pattern recognition and self-trust. When you identify repeated distortion, you stop personalizing it. You stop assuming you are defective. You see the tactic instead of the accusation. This shift changes the emotional dynamic. You no longer scramble for validation. You maintain composure. Clarity does not require confrontation. It requires internal steadiness. The war on your reality loses power the moment you reclaim it. When you trust your perception, distortion weakens. When you trust your memory, narrative control returns. This is the beginning of psychological stabilization. This is the path back to mental sovereignty. Chapter 3. The Emotional Whiplash Cycle. Breaking free from idealization, devaluation, and the trauma bond. The idealization, devaluation, discard cycle. Every narcissistic relationship follows a rhythm. It does not remain chaotic at all times. It moves in phases that create confusion and attachment. The cycle often begins with idealization. You are admired, desired, praised, and emotionally elevated. You feel chosen, seen, and valued in a way that feels rare. Then comes devaluation. Subtle criticism replaces admiration. Disappointment replaces praise. Finally, discard appears in some form. It may not always mean physical abandonment. It may appear as emotional withdrawal, contempt, or punishment. The cycle then resets. A moment of warmth returns. Hope is reignited. This repetition creates emotional instability. The highs feel intoxicating. The lows feel devastating. The emotional whiplash keeps you attached. Love bombing and early intensity. Idealization often feels like destiny. You are told you are different from anyone she has ever known. You are described as strong, stable, and uniquely capable. The attention feels focused and powerful. Communication is constant. Affection feels amplified. You may feel understood deeply and quickly. Shared dreams are discussed early. Future plans feel accelerated. This intensity creates rapid bonding. Your nervous system associates her presence with validation and excitement. You feel elevated. Love bombing is not always conscious, but it creates dependency. It establishes the emotional baseline. Because the beginning feels extraordinary, you compare every later phase to it. You believe if you try harder, you can return to that version of the relationship. You chase the memory of early intensity, the subtle shift into criticism. Devaluation rarely begins with open hostility. It begins with small corrections. It begins with subtle dissatisfaction. She may question your tone. She may critique your decisions. She may suggest you are not as attentive as you once were. The admiration fades gradually. The praise becomes conditional. Approval feels harder to earn. You begin trying to restore balance. You increase effort. You attempt to be more accommodating. Instead of resolving tension, effort often invites more criticism. Your attempts to repair become proof that you were inadequate. The bar continues to move. This stage confuses many men. They assume the relationship simply requires more work. They do not yet see the pattern. Emotional withdrawal and punishment. When devaluation intensifies, withdrawal often follows. Communication becomes cold. Affection becomes scarce. You may experience silent treatment. You may be ignored for hours or days. You may feel invisible in your own home. Withdrawal functions as punishment. It creates anxiety. It forces you to seek reconnection. Because humans are wired for attachment, emotional distance feels threatening. You feel urgency to restore closeness. You apologize even if you are unsure what you did wrong. Once you concede, warmth may return. Relief floods your system. You feel grateful for normalcy. This relief strengthens attachment. You associate reconciliation with emotional safety. You tolerate more to avoid future withdrawal. Understanding trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is formed through cycles of distress and relief. The brain releases stress hormones during conflict. It releases dopamine during reconciliation. This contrast creates powerful attachment. The highs feel stronger because of the lows. The relief feels intense because of the anxiety. You may rationalize behavior you would not tolerate elsewhere. You may defend her actions to others. You may minimize your own pain. Trauma bonding is not about weakness. It is about neurological conditioning. The unpredictable cycle strengthens emotional dependency. Intermittent reinforcement is particularly powerful. You do not know when warmth will return. That unpredictability keeps you engaged. You wait for the good days. You endure the bad ones in anticipation. The hope trap. Hope is one of the strongest forces keeping you in the cycle. You remember the early idealization. You believe that version of her is the real one. You interpret devaluation as stress or misunderstanding. You assume circumstances cause the shift. You believe patience will restore harmony. Hope becomes attachment to potential rather than reality. You focus on what could be instead of what is. You measure her by promises rather than patterns. This hope trap delays clarity. It keeps you emotionally invested. It postpones boundaries. Hope without evidence prolongs harm, emotional whiplash, and nervous system instability. The repeated swing between warmth and withdrawal creates emotional whiplash. Your nervous system never fully relaxes. You anticipate the next shift. You may feel hyper-aware of mood changes. You scan for signs of tension. You adjust behavior preemptively. This hypervigilance becomes exhausting. Your body remains in alert mode. Your mind rarely rests. Emotional whiplash erodes stability. It prevents consistent connection. It fosters anxiety and self-doubt. You are not overreacting. You are responding to unpredictability. Why the cycle intensifies over time. In many narcissistic marriages, the cycle shortens. Idealization becomes briefer. Devaluation becomes more frequent. Because you have already bonded deeply, less effort is required to maintain attachment. She may reduce overt praise. Criticism may become sharper. You may notice increased contempt. Sarcasm replaces admiration. Public charm contrasts with private dismissal. As the cycle intensifies, confusion increases. You work harder to restore stability. The emotional investment deepens. The longer the cycle continues, the more identity becomes intertwined with it, breaking the illusion of the good version. One of the most painful realizations is accepting that the idealized phase may not represent enduring reality. It may represent a strategic or unconscious phase of bonding. It may not be sustainable. The good version may appear occasionally, but if it only surfaces after conflict, it becomes part of the cycle. It becomes reinforcement rather than authenticity. Breaking the illusion requires pattern recognition. Noticing frequency matters. Consistency matters. If warmth is conditional and temporary, it is not stability. If admiration disappears under minor stress, it is not secure attachment. Seeing the pattern reduces its emotional grip. Emotional accountability and pattern observation. Clarity emerges when you observe rather than react. Instead of chasing reconciliation immediately, step back. Notice repetition. Ask yourself how often devaluation follows closeness. Notice whether apologies lead to long-term change. Observe how conflict resets the cycle. Observation reduces impulsive repair attempts. It increases strategic awareness. It restores cognitive control. This does not mean emotional detachment overnight. It means reducing automatic participation in the cycle. Reclaiming emotional stability. To break emotional whiplash, Stability must come from within. You cannot depend on her mood for grounding. You must regulate your own nervous system. Routine helps restore steadiness. Physical health strengthens resilience. Clear boundaries reduce unpredictability. Reducing reactive engagement shortens the cycle. If devaluation is not met with desperation, its power decreases. If withdrawal is not chased, it loses leverage. This shift is subtle but transformative. You stop fueling the rhythm. You stop performing for temporary approval. The role of self-respect. Self-respect interrupts trauma bonding. When you value stability over intensity, the cycle weakens. When you value consistency over praise, clarity increases. Self-respect means acknowledging patterns honestly. It means recognizing when warmth is conditional. It means refusing to normalize contempt. This does not require hostility. It requires internal firmness. It requires calm conviction. The emotional whiplash cycle thrives on reaction. Self-respect fosters steadiness. From emotional chaos to discernment. Discernment replaces confusion. You no longer interpret every shift as your fault. You recognize the structure of the cycle. You stop chasing idealization. You stop overcompensating during devaluation. You stop fearing temporary withdrawal. Discernment brings emotional clarity. Clarity reduces desperation. Desperation feeds the cycle. When you respond calmly instead of urgently, the rhythm changes. You regain control of your internal world. You weaken the trauma bond. The first break in the cycle. The cycle weakens the moment you refuse to participate emotionally. When idealization returns, you accept it without intoxication. When devaluation appears, you observe it without collapse. This balanced response disrupts reinforcement. It reduces the highs and lows. It restores emotional equilibrium. You begin prioritizing stability over drama. You seek consistency over intensity. You value clarity over fantasy. The emotional whiplash loses momentum. The trauma bond begins to loosen. Your internal world stabilizes. This is the beginning of freedom from the cycle, not through force, but through awareness, steadiness, and self-respect. Chapter 4. Conflict or Control. Distinguishing normal marital struggle from psychological warfare. Narcissism versus normal marital conflict. Every marriage experiences tension. Disagreements are not signs of dysfunction. They are signs of two different individuals learning how to coexist. However, not all conflict is created equal. There is a profound difference between healthy disagreement and manipulative control. Recognizing that difference is essential for clarity. Healthy conflict centers on solving problems. Narcissistic conflict centers on winning dominance. One builds understanding,
You stayed to
the
the
other
end of this
erodes
video.
identity.
That
When
tells
you
me
cannot
something important
distinguish the
about you.
two, you
If
may
this gave you
normalize
clarity,
destructive
hit like.
behavior.
If you're
You
committed
may
to growth,
assume all
subscribe.
marriages are
If
this
you're serious
difficult.
about becoming
You may
disciplined,
believe
empowered, and
endurance is
respected,
maturity.
turn on
Discernment
notifications.
changes
Average men scroll
everything.
and troll.
Healthy
High-value men
disagreement
leave comments
versus
and engage
psychological
with purpose.
warfare.
Stay new
Healthy
school wise.
disagreement
See you in the
involves
next
two
video.
perspectives. Both parties express concerns. Both parties listen, even if imperfectly. In healthy tension, accountability exists. One or both partners can say, "I was wrong." Repair becomes possible. Psychological warfare operates differently. The goal is not resolution. The goal is control over narrative and emotional outcome. In warfare, conversations escalate quickly. Past mistakes are weaponized. Your character is attacked instead of the issue being addressed. The tone becomes accusatory rather than curious. Statements shift from behavior to identity. "You forgot to call" becomes "you are selfish." This shift marks the difference between addressing a problem and attacking a person. Accountability versus blame shifting. Accountability requires self-reflection. It requires humility. It requires emotional maturity. In a healthy marriage, both partners can acknowledge their contribution to conflict. There is shared ownership. there is movement toward repair. In narcissistic dynamics, blame shifting dominates. Responsibility rarely stays where it belongs. It is redirected toward you. Even when you bring up a legitimate concern, the conversation may pivot instantly. Instead of discussing her behavior, you are defending yours. Your issue disappears under counter-accusation. Blame shifting creates imbalance. You become the perpetual offender. She becomes the perpetual victim. This imbalance erodes fairness. It distorts perception. It destabilizes confidence. Repair versus retaliation. Healthy conflict aims for repair. After tension, there is effort to reconnect. There is acknowledgement of emotional impact. Repair may not be perfect, but it exists. It restores safety. Retaliation functions differently. Instead of seeking connection, it seeks punishment. Instead of calming tension, it escalates it. You may notice that small disagreements lead to extended emotional coldness. Affection may be withheld. Communication may become deliberately distant. Retaliation sends a message. It says, disagreeing with me has consequences. It conditions compliance. Over time, you may avoid raising concerns entirely. You may suppress needs to avoid backlash. You may equate silence with peace. That silence is not harmony. It is self-suppression. Emotional intensity versus emotional manipulation. Strong emotion does not automatically indicate narcissism. Some individuals simply experience feelings deeply. Intensity alone is not the defining factor. The key difference lies in pattern and purpose. Is the intensity used to express vulnerability? Or is it used to dominate conversation? Emotional manipulation often includes exaggeration. Minor issues are framed as catastrophic. Your mistakes are amplified beyond proportion. The emotional temperature becomes overwhelming. You focus on calming the storm rather than addressing the issue. Your original concern dissolves. Manipulation turns emotional expression into leverage. It makes you responsible for her internal state. It shifts focus from truth to control. The role of contempt. Contempt is one of the clearest markers separating conflict from control. Disagreement can occur without disrespect. Contempt attacks dignity. Contempt appears as sarcasm, eye-rolling, mockery, or belittling tone. It communicates superiority. It erodes respect. In healthy marriages, frustration may occur, but contempt is rare and quickly addressed. It is recognized as harmful. In narcissistic dynamics, contempt may become habitual. Your opinions are dismissed. Your competence is questioned, publicly or privately. Repeated contempt reshapes self-perception. You begin doubting your capability. You internalize criticism. Contempt is not a communication style. It is a dominant strategy. When counseling helps, and when it doesn't. Many men seek counseling hoping for clarity. Professional guidance can be beneficial, but context matters. Counseling works best when both parties seek growth. If accountability exists on both sides, progress is possible. Mutual effort drives improvement. However, if narcissistic patterns dominate, therapy may become another arena for manipulation. She may present herself as wounded or misunderstood. She may frame you as emotionally deficient. Without recognizing manipulation, counseling sessions may reinforce distorted narratives. You may leave feeling more confused. You may accept disproportionate responsibility. This does not mean counseling is useless. It means discernment is critical. Individual therapy for clarity may be more stabilizing initially. Self-awareness must precede joint repair, the frequency and predictability test. One effective way to distinguish conflict from control is pattern observation. How often do disagreements end with mutual resolution? How often do they end with you apologizing regardless of origin? Is criticism consistent and balanced? Or is it primarily directed at you? Does repair follow tension reliably? Healthy marriages show variability. Some conflicts are messy, others are calm. But patterns trend toward fairness. Narcissistic dynamics show predictability. The same escalation methods repeat. The same blame shifting occurs. Frequency reveals intention. Consistency reveals structure. Emotional safety as the benchmark. A fundamental question clarifies everything. Do you feel emotionally safe expressing concerns? Or do you anticipate backlash? Emotional safety means you can speak honestly, without fear of humiliation. It means disagreement does not threaten identity. It means your voice is valued, even when challenged. If you consistently brace yourself before speaking, pay attention. If you rehearse sentences carefully to avoid explosion, pay attention. If silence feels safer than honesty, something is wrong. Safety is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of respect during conflict, the impact on self-expression. In healthy marriages, self-expression grows. Partners become more comfortable over time. Authenticity increases. In controlling dynamics, self-expression shrinks. You filter opinions. You suppress preferences. You may avoid topics entirely. You may downplay achievements. You may disengage emotionally. Shrinking is not compromise. It is adaptation under pressure. Over time, this adaptation becomes identity distortion. You forget what unfiltered expression feels like. You prioritize peace over authenticity. Gaslighting within conflict. Conflict becomes particularly destabilizing when gaslighting intertwines with it. You raise a concern. She denies the event entirely. Instead of addressing behavior, the conversation shifts to your memory. You defend perception instead of discussing impact. The issue dissolves under confusion. Repeated distortion during conflict erodes cognitive confidence. You may begin doubting your reactions. You may hesitate before bringing up future concerns. When reality becomes negotiable, conflict becomes dangerous. The emotional cost of mislabeling control as conflict. If you mislabel manipulation as normal conflict, you normalize harm. You assume growth requires more patience. You endure longer than necessary. Mislabeling also delays boundaries. You may believe stronger communication skills will solve everything. You may overinvest in repair efforts. Understanding the difference empowers strategic response. It prevents overexertion. It restores clarity. You cannot repair what is rooted in domination. You can only protect yourself from it. Reclaiming clarity through observation. Clarity begins with detachment from emotional urgency. Observe rather than react. Notice patterns over time. Ask yourself whether your dignity remains intact during conflict. Notice whether apologies are reciprocal. Notice whether improvement follows acknowledgement. Observation reduces confusion. It shifts focus from individual arguments to systemic patterns. Patterns reveal truth. Once you see the structure, emotional fog lifts. You understand what you are facing. You regain internal footing, choosing stability over chaos. When conflict is healthy, it strengthens partnership. When conflict is manipulative, it drains stability. Your goal is not to eliminate disagreement. Your goal is to protect dignity. Your goal is to preserve mental clarity. Your goal is to refuse psychological warfare. Stability requires recognizing when repair is possible and when control dominates. It requires courage to acknowledge patterns honestly. It requires commitment to self-respect. The distinction between conflict and control restores power. It ends confusion. It anchors discernment. When you can see clearly, you respond differently. You stop internalizing every accusation. You stop chasing impossible harmony. Clarity is the first shield against manipulation. Discernment is the foundation of emotional strength. Chapter 5. Composure Under Fire. Mastering emotional regulation when you are being provoked. Emotional regulation under fire. When you live in a high conflict or narcissistic dynamic, emotional regulation becomes a survival skill. It is no longer simply about maturity. It becomes about stability, clarity, and protection. Provocation is often deliberate. Statements are designed to trigger defensiveness. Accusations are framed to elicit reaction. If you react impulsively, the narrative shifts instantly. The original issue disappears. Your reaction becomes the focus. Emotional regulation is not suppression. It is disciplined response. It is the ability to remain steady when tension rises. Without regulation, you are pulled into escalation. With regulation, you retain control of your internal world. The trap of reactive anger. Reactive anger is predictable. It is the response most manipulative dynamics aim to provoke. When you lose composure, you lose leverage. You may be accused unfairly. You may be insulted or mocked. Your dignity may be challenged. The instinct to defend yourself forcefully feels justified. But emotional explosion shifts power. It confirms the narrative that you are unstable or aggressive. Once you react strongly, the original provocation fades into the background. You become the problem. The conversation resets around your behavior. This trap repeats. You defend. She escalates. Breaking the cycle requires recognizing provocation as a tactic. When you see the pattern, you pause. When you pause, you regain authority. How narcissistic partners escalate. Escalation often begins subtly. Tone changes. Facial expressions shift. A minor disagreement is reframed as disrespect. A question becomes an accusation. Your calm explanation becomes argumentative. Escalation thrives on emotional intensity. The louder the conflict becomes, the less rational it is. Emotion overrides logic. Narcissistic escalation often includes exaggeration. Words like always and never appear frequently. Past grievances are brought forward suddenly. This creates overwhelm. You attempt to address multiple accusations at once. You become flustered. Escalation is designed to destabilize you. When destabilized, you are easier to control. When calm, you are harder to manipulate. Nervous system management tools. Regulation begins in the body. Your nervous system responds to threat before your mind does. If your body escalates, your words follow. Breathing is foundational. Slow, controlled breaths signal safety to the brain. They interrupt fight or flight activation. Grounding techniques restore presence. Notice physical sensations. Plant your feet firmly on the floor. Delay response when emotions spike. You are not obligated to answer immediately. Silence can be strength. Physical movement also stabilizes stress. Walking, stretching, or controlled exercise dissipates adrenaline. Regulation is both mental and physical. Consistency builds resilience. The more you practice calm in minor stress, the stronger you become during major conflict. Becoming emotionally unshakable. Unshakable does not mean emotionless. It means centered. It means your core remains steady, even when provoked. When accusations arise, observe them before absorbing them. Ask whether they are factual or emotional projections. Do not internalize immediately. Maintain neutral tone. Avoid sarcasm. Avoid escalating volume. Respond briefly and clearly. Lengthy explanations invite more distortion. Simplicity preserves clarity. Emotional steadiness frustrates manipulation. When escalation fails, power shifts. Your composure becomes your strength, separating truth from provocation. Not every criticism is false. Discernment requires honesty. Separate valid feedback from emotional manipulation. If a concern is legitimate, acknowledge it calmly. If it is exaggerated, resist over-defending. Respond proportionally. Provocation often includes personal attacks. Statements targeting character rather than behavior are red flags. Refuse to engage at that level. You do not need to correct every insult. You need to protect your internal stability. Not every accusation deserves energy. Selective engagement preserves strength. The power of strategic silence. Silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is refusal to feed escalation. When conversation spirals, pause. Say, I am willing to discuss this calmly. Then disengage if calm is impossible. Strategic silence prevents emotional exhaustion. It denies the reward of visible reaction. It preserves dignity. Silence also communicates boundaries. It signals that manipulation will not produce desired chaos. It resets dynamics subtly. Silence must remain calm, not contemptuous. It is not withdrawal in anger. It is composure in tension. Reclaiming authority over your reactions. Authority begins internally. You decide how you respond. You decide whether escalation continues. This mindset shifts focus from controlling her behavior to managing your own. You cannot dictate her tone. You can dictate yours. When you stop chasing validation, provocation weakens. When you stop defending excessively, arguments shorten. When you stop personalizing attacks, emotional resilience grows. Authority means you are no longer emotionally dependent on her mood. Her volatility does not determine your stability. Your steadiness becomes independent, avoiding the trap of emotional suppression. Regulation is not suppression. Suppression stores resentment. It builds internal pressure. After conflict, process emotions privately. Journal honestly. Speak with trusted counsel if needed. Acknowledge anger without acting on it impulsively. Recognize frustration without lashing out. Feel emotion without surrendering to it. Balanced processing prevents explosion. It protects mental health. It sustains long-term stability. Setting verbal boundaries calmly. When provocation becomes frequent, verbal boundaries may be necessary. State them simply. Avoid dramatic declarations. Examples include, "I will not continue this conversation if I am being insulted," or "I am open to discussion when it remains respectful." Deliver boundaries without anger. Consistency matters more than intensity. Follow through quietly. Boundaries without enforcement are ignored. Boundaries with calm enforcement build respect. The long-term benefit of emotional discipline. Emotional discipline strengthens identity. You begin trusting your reactions. You feel grounded, even in tension. Arguments shorten because you refuse escalation. Confusion decreases because you respond deliberately. Self-respect increases because you remain composed. You also become more aware of patterns. Regulation creates mental space for observation. Observation fuels strategy. Emotional discipline is not about winning arguments. It is about preserving clarity. It is about protecting your internal world, reducing the reward of chaos. Some dynamics thrive on emotional chaos. If conflict produces visible distress, it reinforces escalation. If conflict produces calm steadiness, reinforcement weakens. Reducing visible reaction does not eliminate manipulation instantly, but it reduces payoff. Without payoff, patterns shift. You become less predictable emotionally. Predictability fuels manipulation. Unshakable steadiness disrupts it, building internal stability outside the conflict. Regulation improves when life is structured. Physical fitness strengthens resilience. Consistent sleep improves cognitive control. Healthy routines reduce baseline stress. When baseline stress is lower, provocation has less impact. Your threshold increases. Strong external identity also stabilizes internal reactions. Engage in work, friendships, and pursuits that reinforce competence. Do not allow marriage to define your entire identity. Broader identity reduces emotional dependency. The shift from reaction to strategy. Reactive behavior is impulsive. Strategic behavior is deliberate. The shift begins with pause. Instead of asking, "How do I win this argument?" ask, "What outcome serves my stability?" Instead of proving your point, preserve your composure. Instead of escalating, disengage strategically. Strategy reduces chaos. It prioritizes long-term strength over short-term validation. It transforms conflict into data rather than drama. Calm is a form of strength. Calm is often misunderstood as weakness. In high conflict dynamics, calm is dominance over self. It is emotional mastery. When you remain steady under pressure, you protect dignity. You preserve mental clarity. You maintain authority. Composure under fire changes the dynamic. It reduces manipulation's leverage. It restores internal sovereignty. Emotional regulation is the foundation of survival. Without it, you are reactive. With it, you are grounded. Grounded men are difficult to destabilize. Grounded men are difficult to control. Grounded men move from chaos toward clarity. Chapter 6. The Discipline of Distance. Strategic detachment as a path to clarity, strength, and emotional freedom. The power of strategic detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. Strategic detachment is emotional discipline. It is the decision to stop feeding instability with your energy. It is the refusal to allow manipulation to dictate your internal state. In narcissistic dynamics, emotional engagement is often exploited. Your reactions become leverage. Your empathy becomes a tool used against you. Detachment restores balance. It shifts focus from controlling her behavior to protecting your internal world. It is not withdrawal from responsibility. It is withdrawal from emotional chaos. What detachment really means? Detachment does not mean you stop caring about your family. It does not mean you stop fulfilling your duties. It means you stop over-investing emotionally in distorted exchanges. You remain present. You remain responsible. But you reduce emotional exposure. Instead of reacting immediately, you observe. Instead of defending endlessly, you respond briefly. Instead of absorbing every accusation, you filter carefully. Detachment is clarity without hostility. It is calm without compliance. It is steadiness without surrender. Why emotional engagement fuels manipulation? Manipulative dynamics thrive on emotional intensity. If you react strongly, the interaction escalates. Escalation shifts focus from facts to emotion. Your anger can be used against you. Your frustration becomes proof of instability. Your attempts to reason become evidence of argumentativeness. When emotional engagement is reduced, escalation loses fuel. Arguments shorten. Manipulation weakens. Detachment removes the reward of reaction. It disrupts reinforcement cycles. It reduces drama. The absence of reaction is often more powerful than confrontation. The grey rock principle. One of the most practical detachment tools is often referred to as the grey rock principle. The idea is simple. Become emotionally neutral and uninteresting during manipulative exchanges. Respond briefly. Avoid emotional storytelling. Avoid over-explaining. Keep communication factual. Limit personal disclosure. Do not feed curiosity with emotional detail. When conversations attempt to provoke, respond with minimal expression. You are not performing coldness. You are protecting energy. Grey rock is not about contempt. It is about neutrality. It is about removing emotional hooks, reducing emotional supply. In narcissistic patterns, emotional supply often drives behavior. Supply includes admiration, validation, anger, and attention. Even negative attention can reinforce control. Reducing supply does not require confrontation. It requires steadiness. It requires boundaries. If praise is demanded, do not exaggerate to appease. If criticism is baited, do not escalate. If drama is invited, do not participate. This reduction feels uncomfortable initially. The dynamic may intensify briefly, but consistency reduces dependency on your reaction. Over time, emotional equilibrium strengthens, maintaining dignity and boundaries. Detachment must remain anchored in dignity. It is not passive surrender. It is composed strength. When disrespect occurs, acknowledge it calmly. State your boundary clearly. Enforce consequences quietly. You do not argue about your standard. You maintain it. Consistency builds authority. Detachment allows you to enforce boundaries without emotional collapse. It protects you from being pulled into circular debates. It strengthens internal confidence, letting go of the need to be understood. One of the hardest parts of detachment is releasing the need for her understanding. You may want her to see your perspective. You may crave validation of your experience. In manipulative dynamics, understanding is often withheld intentionally. Arguments are not about clarity. They are about control. Detachment means accepting that mutual understanding may not always occur. You stop chasing agreement. You focus on internal alignment. When you no longer require validation, power shifts inward. You preserve mental stability. You protect emotional energy. The emotional detox phase. Initially, detachment feels unnatural. You may feel guilt. You may fear being perceived as cold. These emotions are common. They arise from conditioning. You were trained to overengage. As you reduce engagement, internal anxiety may spike briefly. You are breaking a pattern. Discomfort is part of transition. Over time, calm increases. Arguments feel less consuming. You feel less emotionally drained. This detox phase marks growth. It signals reclaimed stability. Avoiding emotional retaliation. Detachment is not revenge. It is not silent hostility. It is controlled presence. If you detach in anger, it becomes punishment. If you detach in calm, it becomes strength. Avoid sarcasm. Avoid passive-aggressive tone. Maintain respect. Your goal is not to hurt. Your goal is to stabilize. Your composure matters more than her reaction. Strategic communication. When detaching, communication must become concise. Long explanations invite distortion. Short clarity preserves control. Answer questions directly. Decline unnecessary debate. Redirect conversations that spiral. If a topic becomes circular, state calmly that you disagree and disengage. You do not need final agreement. You need internal clarity. Strategic communication reduces vulnerability to manipulation. It prevents emotional exhaustion. It maintains focus. Protecting mental energy. Mental energy is finite. Repeated arguments drain cognitive strength. Detachment preserves capacity. Choose carefully what deserves engagement. Not every accusation requires rebuttal. Not every comment requires correction. Silence sometimes protects clarity more effectively than defense. Let minor distortions pass when correction would escalate chaos. Reserve energy for meaningful boundaries. This selectivity strengthens resilience. Emotional independence. Detachment fosters emotional independence. You no longer depend on her mood for stability. You no longer chase approval for confidence. Your emotional baseline becomes self-regulated. You anchor identity internally. You reduce volatility. Independence does not eliminate love. It eliminates dependency. It replaces desperation with calm. Emotional independence increases respect for yourself. It reduces reactive behavior. It strengthens leadership. The impact on conflict frequency. As detachment stabilizes, conflict frequency may change. Some provocations decrease. Some intensify briefly. Consistency determines outcome. If you revert to emotional reaction, the old pattern resumes. If you maintain calm, reinforcement weakens. Over time, interactions may become more predictable. You feel less destabilized. You feel less controlled. Detachment alters dynamics subtly but powerfully. When detachment reveals deeper truths. Strategic detachment often reveals reality more clearly. Without emotional fog, patterns become obvious. You see consistency, or lack thereof. You may realize repair is possible. You may realize it is not. Detachment provides data without distortion. Clarity empowers decision-making. It reduces confusion. It restores agency. Whether you stay or eventually leave, detachment prepares you. It strengthens internal stability. It reduces chaos-driven choices. From reaction to composed authority, detachment transforms reactive behavior into composed authority. You no longer respond impulsively. You choose engagement deliberately. Authority is quiet. It does not require shouting. It does not require validation. When you detach strategically, you model calm leadership. You demonstrate strength without aggression. You protect your mental and emotional foundation. The discipline of distance is not abandonment. It is preservation. It is clarity in action. By reducing emotional supply, enforcing boundaries calmly, and maintaining neutrality during provocation, you shift from survival to steadiness. You reduce volatility. You strengthen your internal world. Detachment is not about disconnecting from life. It is about disconnecting from chaos. It is the first step toward emotional freedom. Chapter 7. The Invisible Leash. Protecting your financial stability from manipulation and control. Financial manipulation and control. Money in marriage is not just about bills and budgeting. It represents power, freedom, and security. In narcissistic dynamics, finances often become a subtle instrument of control. Financial manipulation does not always look dramatic. It can appear as management. It can appear as oversight. Over time, however, patterns emerge. Access becomes limited. Transparency becomes inconsistent. Financial control erodes autonomy. When one partner dominates economic decisions, balance disappears. Dependency increases vulnerability. Understanding financial manipulation is not about suspicion. It is about awareness. It is about protecting long-term stability. Hidden financial abuse. Financial abuse is often overlooked because it hides behind routine. Bills are paid. Accounts are maintained. Yet control may exist beneath the surface. You may not have access to full account information. You may be discouraged from reviewing statements. Spending decisions may be questioned disproportionately. Your purchases are scrutinized. Her spending is justified without discussion. This imbalance creates silent pressure. You may feel like you need permission. You may feel monitored. Financial abuse also includes reckless behavior. Excessive spending may occur without consultation. Debt may accumulate quietly. If you question the behavior, you may be accused of mistrust. If you express concern, you may be labeled controlling. The conversation shifts away from accountability. Hidden financial abuse destabilizes long-term planning. It weakens security. It increases anxiety. Control through money. Control can manifest through restriction. Access to joint accounts may be limited. You may receive partial information. It can also manifest through chaos. Unpredictable spending creates instability. Emergency funds may disappear without warning. In some cases, income may be leveraged as a weapon. If you earn more, you may be told you are obligated to fund every demand. If you earn less, you may be reminded of it during conflict. Money becomes tied to respect. Financial contribution becomes moral leverage. Disagreements become framed around earning power. This dynamic erodes equality. It transforms partnership into hierarchy. It fosters resentment and fear, recognizing financial red flags. Financial manipulation often begins with small indicators. Refusal to share passwords without reason. Resistance to transparent budgeting discussions. Frequent impulse purchases without mutual agreement. Secretive communication regarding financial matters. Unexplained withdrawals or transfers. Dismissing your financial concerns as paranoia. Minimizing the importance of savings. Deflecting accountability during budgeting conversations. Patterns matter more than isolated incidents. Consistency reveals structure. Structure reveals intention. If anxiety increases when discussing money, observe the pattern. Financial conversations should not consistently trigger hostility. Repeated defensiveness signals imbalance, quietly strengthening your financial foundation. Financial protection does not require confrontation. It requires preparation. Preparation requires discipline. Start by gathering complete information. Know all account balances. Understand debts clearly. Maintain copies of key documents. Tax returns. Loan agreements. Document assets. Document liabilities. Clarity reduces vulnerability. If accounts are joint, monitor them regularly. Review statements consistently. Awareness prevents surprise. Create personal financial literacy. Understand investments. Understand retirement planning. Independence in knowledge strengthens security. Establishing emergency stability. Every individual benefits from emergency planning. In high-conflict marriages, this becomes essential. Emergency funds provide options. Set aside savings discreetly if necessary. Not for retaliation, for security. Options reduce desperation. Desperation increases compliance. Stability restores confidence. Maintain access to important identification documents. Keep copies stored securely. Preparation prevents panic. Emergency stability is not betrayal. It is prudence. Budgeting as strategic clarity. Budgeting in a healthy marriage builds unity. In manipulative dynamics, it exposes imbalance. Clarity may provoke resistance. Propose structured financial reviews calmly. Keep discussion factual. Avoid emotional accusations. If cooperation is limited, track independently. Know what is entering and leaving accounts. Record patterns objectively. Structured clarity protects against distortion. Facts reduce manipulation. Documentation strengthens credibility. Protecting assets without escalation. Financial defense does not require dramatic confrontation. Aggressive accusations may escalate tension. Calm strategy preserves leverage. Consult financial professionals privately if needed. Seek advice on asset protection. Understand legal frameworks in your region. Avoid impulsive financial retaliation. Do not withdraw large sums emotionally. Do not engage in secretive revenge spending. Calm preparation protects more effectively than reactive behavior. Stability requires patience. Strategy requires composure. The psychological impact of financial instability. Financial manipulation extends beyond numbers. It affects mental health. It increases anxiety. When stability feels uncertain, stress rises. Sleep may suffer. Focus may weaken. You may feel trapped if resources are limited. Dependency increases vulnerability. Autonomy decreases. Restoring financial clarity reduces psychological pressure. Knowledge strengthens calm. Options reduce fear. Financial stability is not about wealth alone. It is about freedom of choice. Financial transparency as a standard. Healthy marriage includes transparency. Both partners understand shared resources. Both participate in planning. If transparency is resisted consistently, examine motives. Resistance without reason is a warning. Shared life requires shared clarity. Propose regular financial check-ins. Keep tone neutral. Emphasize partnership rather than accusation. If transparency remains blocked, shift focus to independent preparation. You cannot force cooperation. You can strengthen your position quietly. Preparing without broadcasting. Preparation loses effectiveness if it is announced dramatically. Avoid threats about financial separation during arguments. Avoid using money as leverage yourself. Quiet discipline builds strength. Loud warnings invite escalation. Steady preparation protects stability. If future legal processes become necessary, documentation will matter. If reconciliation occurs, financial literacy still benefits you. Preparation serves both paths, protecting credit and reputation. Credit stability affects long-term opportunity. Monitor credit reports regularly. Watch for unfamiliar accounts. Joint debt impacts both parties. Stay aware of loans. Stay informed about payment status. Late payments can damage credit unexpectedly. Financial recklessness affects both partners. Proactive monitoring prevents surprise. Reputation includes financial credibility. Preserving it protects future freedom. Teaching children financial stability. If children are present, financial modeling matters. They observe tension around money. They internalize lessons. Avoid discussing financial conflict in front of them. Maintain calm when possible. Model responsibility. Teach them basic financial literacy. Empower them with knowledge. Break cycles of instability. Financial stability becomes generational strength. Balancing prudence with integrity. Protecting finances does not justify unethical behavior. Avoid deception that violates legal standards. Avoid hiding assets in retaliation. Integrity strengthens position. Manipulation weakens credibility. Calm strategy builds authority. Financial defense rooted in ethics protects long-term stability. Short-term revenge harms more than it helps. Reclaiming financial confidence. Financial manipulation often erodes confidence. You may feel incapable of managing money alone. You may doubt your understanding. Reclaim confidence through education. Read consistently. Seek professional guidance if needed. Financial literacy builds independence. Independence reduces fear. Fear fuels compliance. Confidence in financial matters strengthens overall stability. Clarity in numbers supports clarity in decisions. From dependency to stability. Dependency increases vulnerability. Stability restores strength. Money is not the enemy. Control through money is the issue. Awareness dissolves blind spots. Preparation restores balance. When you understand your financial position clearly, anxiety decreases. When you maintain documentation, confusion fades. When you build reserves, fear lessens. The invisible leash weakens as independence grows. Stability replaces chaos. Strategy replaces panic. Financial protection is not about distrust. It is about wisdom. It is about safeguarding your future. Money, when managed with clarity and discipline, becomes a shield rather than a weapon. It becomes a foundation for stability. It becomes part of your path from survival towards strength. Chapter 8. Shielding the Next Generation. Parenting with strength and stability inside a high-conflict marriage. Parenting in a high-conflict marriage. Children absorb emotional atmosphere long before they understand its source. They feel tension in tone, silence, and facial expression. They sense instability even when conflict is hidden behind closed doors. In a narcissistic marriage, parenting becomes complex. Conflict may spill into daily routines. Disagreements may shift from private to public. Your responsibility extends beyond self-protection. It includes safeguarding your children's emotional development. It requires discipline, clarity, and restraint. Parenting in this environment demands steadiness. You must regulate yourself first. You must respond rather than react. Children need at least one emotionally stable parent. That stability can be you. Co-parenting versus parallel parenting. In healthy marriages, co-parenting includes collaboration. Decisions are discussed openly. Mutual respect guides structure. In high-conflict dynamics, collaboration may not function. Discussions may devolve into argument. Decisions may become battlegrounds. Parallel parenting may be necessary. This approach reduces direct engagement. Each parent handles responsibilities independently within clear boundaries. Parallel parenting minimizes emotional entanglement. It limits opportunities for manipulation. It preserves stability for children. Structure becomes critical. Schedules should remain consistent. Expectations should be clear and predictable. Children thrive on routine. Consistency builds security. Predictability reduces anxiety. Protecting children from emotional games. One of the most damaging patterns in high-conflict marriages is triangulation. Children may be pulled into adult disputes. They may become emotional messengers. You may hear statements like, "Tell your father," or subtle remarks designed to influence their perception of you. This creates loyalty conflict. Never retaliate through children. Do not correct her narrative aggressively in front of them. Do not recruit them as allies. If misinformation arises, correct it calmly and privately. Offer simple clarity. Avoid emotional dumping. Children should not carry adult burdens. They should not manage adult emotions. They deserve neutrality. Your restraint models maturity. Your composure builds safety. Avoiding loyalty traps. Loyalty traps occur when children feel forced to choose sides. They may feel pressure to align with one parent emotionally. This internal conflict creates anxiety. If your wife criticizes you in their presence, resist immediate defense. Afterward, speak calmly and simply. Reassure them without attacking her. Statements like, "Adults sometimes disagree, but that does not change my love for you," reinforce security. Avoid turning explanations into character attacks. Keep focus on stability. Children need freedom to love both parents. They need emotional permission to connect without guilt. Your steadiness supports that freedom. Modeling calm leadership. Children learn emotional regulation by observation. They study your reactions. They mirror your tone. If you escalate frequently, they internalize volatility. If you withdraw completely, they internalize avoidance. If you remain calm, they internalize steadiness. Leadership does not require dominance. It requires consistency. It requires clarity. When conflict occurs, keep your voice measured. Maintain posture and composure. Demonstrate respect, even when it is not reciprocated. Your modeling shapes their emotional blueprint. It influences future relationships. It defines their understanding of strength. Communicating stability in private moments. Children often process emotions quietly. They may not verbalize confusion. They may internalize stress. Create private opportunities for conversation. Ask open-ended questions. Listen without judgment. If they express confusion about conflict, validate feelings without assigning blame. Acknowledge that tension exists. Reassure them that adult issues are not their responsibility. Stability comes from reassurance and predictability. Repeat affirmations consistently. Demonstrate reliability through action. Consistency builds trust. Shielding without overcompensating. When tension rises, the instinct to overcompensate can appear. You may attempt to become the perfect parent. You may overindulge to balance negativity. Avoid extremes. Excessive indulgence can create confusion. Discipline must remain steady. Healthy boundaries matter. Consistency matters more than compensation. Children respect calm authority. Shielding does not mean shielding from all discomfort. It means shielding from adult emotional chaos. Balance structure with warmth. Managing public conflict. If disagreements occur in front of children, prioritize de-escalation. Avoid shouting. Avoid sarcasm. If tension intensifies, disengage calmly. State that you will continue the conversation later. Model emotional discipline. Afterward, reconnect with your children privately. Acknowledge that raised voices may have been uncomfortable. Reassure them of stability. Public composure reinforces security. Private reassurance strengthens trust. Supporting emotional expression. Children need permission to express feelings freely. They may feel anger, confusion, or sadness. Do not dismiss these emotions. Encourage open dialogue. Validate without overanalyzing. Remain calm while listening. Avoid weaponizing their statements. Do not use their concerns to attack your spouse. Protect their emotional safety. Teaching healthy expression empowers resilience. It prevents suppression. It builds long-term confidence. Maintaining structure during instability. Structure becomes more important during emotional turbulence. Regular meal times. Consistent bedtimes. Scheduled activities. Reliable routines. Predictable expectations. Structure reduces anxiety. It provides anchors in chaos. It communicates safety through repetition. Children thrive when life feels organized. Even if marriage feels unstable, routine restores balance, preparing for potential separation. If separation becomes possible, preparation matters. Avoid alarming children prematurely. But consider stability plans. Understand custody frameworks in your region. Document involvement in their daily life. Maintain consistent participation. Your presence should be visible and consistent. Attend events. Engage actively. Preparation is not pessimism. It is prudence. It safeguards continuity. Teaching emotional intelligence through example. Conflict provides opportunity for modeling emotional intelligence. Show them how to pause before reacting. Demonstrate respectful disagreement. If you make a mistake, apologize sincerely. Accountability teaches responsibility. Humility builds respect. Children, observing balanced leadership, internalize those patterns. They learn strength without aggression. They learn clarity without hostility. Your example shapes generational outcomes, protecting your own stability to protect theirs. You cannot shield effectively if you are emotionally depleted. Your self-regulation supports their security. Your composure creates their calm. Maintain personal routines. Engage in physical activity. Seek grounded counsel if needed. Strength in fatherhood begins with internal steadiness. When you are grounded, they feel anchored. When you are reactive, they feel uncertain. Self-care in this context is responsibility. It is not indulgence. It strengthens your ability to lead. Long-term impact of steady fatherhood. Children raised in high-conflict environments often remember one stable figure clearly. They remember who remained calm. They remember who felt safe. Even if narratives are distorted temporarily, consistency leaves imprint. Over time, patterns reveal themselves. Truth surfaces gradually. Your role is not to control perception. It is to embody stability. It is to provide secure attachment. Secure attachment builds resilience. Resilience shapes adulthood. Adulthood influences future families. Remaining present under pressure. Presence requires intention. Do not withdraw emotionally because conflict feels overwhelming. Engage with purpose. Participate in daily routines. Help with homework. Attend important events. Your reliability builds trust. Your consistency builds confidence. Your calm builds safety. Even in high-conflict marriage, fatherhood remains sacred. Your steadiness becomes protection. Your leadership becomes shield. Shielding the next generation does not require perfection. It requires discipline. It requires emotional strength. By refusing to weaponize children, maintaining calm leadership, and providing consistent structure, you create stability within instability. You become their anchor. You become their example of composure under pressure. Chapter 9. The Smear Campaign. Standing firm when your character is under attack. Smear campaigns and reputation attacks. When narcissistic dynamics escalate, the conflict often expands beyond the home. The battle shifts from private arguments to public narrative. Your character becomes the target. A smear campaign is not random gossip. It is a strategic effort to control perception. It reframes you as unstable, cruel, neglectful, or incompetent. The goal is not truth. The goal is reputation dominance. If others believe her version, your credibility weakens. This phase is emotionally destabilizing. You may feel betrayed. You may feel exposed. The instinct is to defend aggressively, but impulsive defense often reinforces the chaos. Strength requires composure. Character assassination. Character assassination attacks identity rather than behavior. It reframes isolated incidents as defining traits. It exaggerates minor mistakes into moral failures. You may be labeled controlling for setting boundaries. You may be labeled cold for practicing detachment. You may be labeled abusive for expressing frustration. The narrative simplifies complexity. It removes context. It assigns motive without evidence. This distortion spreads quietly at first. Close friends may hear one-sided accounts. Family members may be influenced subtly. Character assassination aims to isolate you. If others doubt you, support weakens. Isolation increases vulnerability. The psychology behind public narrative control. Reputation influences power. If she controls the narrative, she controls sympathy. Sympathy strengthens leverage. Public storytelling often includes emotional intensity. Tears may accompany exaggerated claims. Selective details frame you negatively. If you attempt to correct every distortion publicly, you risk appearing defensive. If you attack her narrative aggressively, you risk confirming her claims. This is the trap. The key is measured response. Not silence out of fear, not aggression out of anger. Balanced composure preserves credibility. Social manipulation tactics. Smear campaigns often use triangulation. Third parties become carriers of information. Conversations occur without your presence. Subtle comments may be inserted into casual settings. Concerns may be framed as worry rather than accusation. Statements are crafted to appear reasonable. Social media may be used indirectly. Vague posts hint at victimhood. Cryptic messages invite speculation. The aim is to influence perception gradually. It rarely begins with blatant lies. It builds through suggestion. Recognizing tactics prevents emotional overreaction. Maintaining composure in public. Public composure is critical. Emotional outbursts damage credibility. Silence paired with dignity strengthens it. If confronted with accusation, respond briefly. Avoid detailed rebuttal in heated moments. State that disagreements exist without attacking. Maintain respectful tone even when misrepresented. Your consistency builds trust over time. Character is demonstrated through behavior, not argument. People observe patterns. They notice who escalates. They notice who remains steady. Long-term credibility is earned through calm conduct. Documentation as protection. When reputation is threatened, documentation becomes essential. Keep records of communication. Save messages and emails. Record dates of significant interactions. Maintain factual notes rather than emotional commentary. Objectivity strengthens defense. If legal processes arise, documentation protects credibility. Facts counter distortion. Preparation reduces vulnerability. Documentation is not paranoia. It is prudence. It safeguards stability, avoiding the counter-smear. The temptation to retaliate publicly is strong. You may want to expose her behavior. You may want to restore reputation immediately. Counter-smearing often escalates conflict. It invites further distortion. It deepens public division. Resist the urge to mirror tactics. Retaliation weakens moral authority. Integrity strengthens position. Focus on consistent behavior. Allow patterns to reveal themselves. Truth often surfaces over time. Navigating family dynamics. Extended family may be influenced early. They may hear partial accounts. They may respond emotionally. When addressing family members, remain calm. Offer simple clarity without attacking. Avoid over-explaining. You are not obligated to persuade everyone. Some may remain biased. Energy must be preserved. Consistent conduct over time shifts perception. Actions speak louder than narrative. Stability reveals truth gradually. Protecting professional reputation. If smear campaigns reach professional circles, composure is even more vital. Avoid discussing marital conflict openly at work. Maintain professional boundaries. If false claims threaten employment, consult legal counsel. Address concerns formally, if necessary. Protect documentation. Professional credibility relies on consistency. Performance matters. Reliability matters. Stay focused on competence. Do not allow personal chaos to define professional identity. The emotional toll of public distortion. Being misrepresented publicly is painful. It triggers anger and humiliation. It may create loneliness. Acknowledge these emotions privately. Do not suppress them entirely. Process them constructively. Journal thoughts. Speak with trusted counsel. Maintain grounded support systems. Suppressing emotion leads to explosion. Healthy processing restores clarity. Clarity supports composure, letting truth reveal itself over time. Smear campaigns rely on intensity. They thrive on urgency. They demand immediate reaction. Time reduces intensity. Patterns become visible. Inconsistencies surface. When you maintain steady conduct, observers begin noticing disparity. They see calm versus chaos. They see restraint versus escalation. Truth does not always surface instantly, but sustained dignity builds credibility. Consistency exposes distortion. Patience strengthens position, refusing to internalize false narratives. The most dangerous aspect of a smear campaign is internalization. Repeated accusations can create self-doubt. You may begin questioning your own integrity. Guard against internal absorption of distortion. Review facts objectively. Separate behavior from accusation. Self-reflection is healthy. Self-condemnation based on distortion is not. Maintain balanced evaluation. You are not defined by one-sided narrative. Identity must remain internally anchored. External noise cannot dictate self-worth. The role of legal awareness. If smear campaigns escalate toward legal territory, preparation matters. Consult professionals discreetly. Understand defamation standards in your jurisdiction. Avoid threatening legal action impulsively. Strategic counsel preserves leverage. Measured response protects stability. Legal awareness provides security. Security reduces panic. Preparation strengthens calm. Emotional detachment from public opinion. Not every person needs to understand your side. Not every accusation requires correction. Emotional detachment from public opinion restores strength. Focus on those who matter. Preserve core relationships. Release peripheral noise. Seeking universal approval increases vulnerability. Seeking integrity strengthens stability. Public perception fluctuates. Internal clarity remains constant. Building a reputation through conduct. Character is revealed through consistent action. Integrity builds slowly. It cannot be fabricated. Remain reliable. Remain respectful. Remain composed. Over time, steady conduct contrasts with chaotic storytelling. Observers connect patterns. Credibility shifts. Your reputation ultimately reflects behavior more than words. From defense to dignity. Smear campaigns attempt to push you into reactive defense. Dignity resists that pressure. It refuses to descend into chaos. Respond when necessary. Remain silent when strategic. Preserve composure always. Your strength lies in consistency. Your power lies in restraint. Your stability speaks louder than accusation. When your character is under attack, composure becomes protection. Documentation becomes shield. Integrity becomes anchor. Standing firm does not mean standing loudly. It means standing steadily. It means trusting that truth, over time, outweighs distortion. Chapter 10. Boundaries that hold. From verbal requests to enforced standards that protect your stability. Boundaries that actually work. Boundaries are often misunderstood in marriage. They are not ultimatums. They are not punishments. Boundaries are standards for behavior that protect dignity and stability. They define what you will and will not accept. They clarify consequences without emotional drama. In narcissistic dynamics, weak boundaries invite escalation. Repeated tolerance of disrespect normalizes it. Inconsistent enforcement erodes credibility. Effective boundaries require clarity. They require consistency. They require calm follow-through. Without enforcement, boundaries are merely requests. Requests can be ignored. Standards cannot. Why verbal boundaries fail. Many men state boundaries emotionally during arguments. They announce limits in frustration. They threaten consequences they do not enforce. Statements like, "I won't tolerate this anymore," lose power when repeated without action. Over time, such declarations become background noise. They lose seriousness. Verbal boundaries fail when they are reactive rather than strategic. They fail when consequences are vague. They fail when enforcement depends on mood. If you set a boundary but immediately argue about it, the focus shifts. Instead of upholding a standard, you enter debate. Debate invites manipulation. Boundaries are not debates. They are decisions. Understanding consequences versus threats. A threat is emotional and impulsive. A consequence is calm and predictable. Threats are designed to intimidate. Consequences are designed to protect. Threats escalate conflict. Consequences create clarity. They are communicated simply. They are executed quietly. For example, a threat may sound like anger. A consequence sounds measured. It states what action will occur if behavior continues. Consequences must be realistic. They must be within your control. They must not rely on her cooperation. If a boundary requires her agreement to function, it is weak. If it relies on your action, it is strong. Identifying core boundaries. Not every irritation requires a boundary. Select standards carefully. Focus on repeated patterns. Core boundaries often include respect in communication. They include financial transparency. They include emotional safety. Define what crosses the line clearly. Ambiguity weakens enforcement. Clarity strengthens authority. Write your boundaries privately. See them clearly on paper. Clarity strengthens conviction. If you are unsure where your line is, reflect honestly. Ask yourself what consistently erodes dignity. Patterns reveal priority. Behavioral enforcement. Enforcement does not require volume. It requires consistency. It requires follow-through. If disrespect escalates, disengage calmly. Leave the room without hostility. End the conversation without drama. If financial boundaries are violated, separate accounts strategically. If communication becomes abusive, limit access to engagement. Enforcement must match the boundary. Do not explain repeatedly. Do not justify excessively. State the consequence once and act. Repeated explanation weakens authority. Quiet action strengthens it. Calm, consistency. Consistency determines credibility. If enforcement fluctuates, boundaries collapse. If enforcement remains steady, standards solidify. Do not enforce harshly one day and tolerate the next. Mixed signals invite manipulation. Predictability commands respect. Calm consistency may initially provoke resistance. When old patterns are disrupted, tension increases briefly. Stay steady. Over time, behavior adjusts to consistency. If it does not adjust, clarity increases. Either way, stability grows. Boundaries around communication. Communication is often the most volatile area in narcissistic dynamics. Tone becomes weaponized. Volume becomes intimidation. Set boundaries around respectful dialogue. State clearly that insults end conversations. Follow through every time. If yelling begins, disengage immediately. Do not argue about tone. Simply withdraw. This teaches that escalation does not gain attention. It removes reinforcement. It protects your nervous system. Consistency retrains dynamics subtly. Boundaries around time and energy. Your time is valuable. Repeated circular arguments drain energy. Limit engagement strategically. Set specific times for discussions if necessary. Avoid late-night debates. Avoid public confrontations. If conversations spiral, state that you will revisit when calm. Then step away. Return only if respect is possible. Time boundaries preserve mental clarity. They reduce exhaustion. They increase composure. Financial boundaries. Financial boundaries protect long-term stability. They may include transparency expectations. They may include spending limits. If agreements are violated, adjust structure. Separate discretionary funds. Require documented budgeting. Avoid emotional accusations about spending. Focus on structure. Structure prevents conflict more effectively than argument. Financial boundaries must be practical. They must be measurable. They must be enforceable. Parenting boundaries. Children should not be used as leverage. State clearly that triangulation is unacceptable. Enforce by refusing to engage in indirect communication. If children are used as messengers, redirect communication directly. Maintain calm tone. Protect their emotional safety. Parenting boundaries prioritize children's stability. They require discipline. They require restraint. Consistency models leadership. Emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries protect your internal state. You are not responsible for regulating her mood. You are responsible for regulating yours. If she attempts to provoke guilt, evaluate objectively. Do not absorb blame reflexively. Pause before responding. You are allowed to disagree calmly. You are allowed to maintain your perspective. You are allowed to step away. Emotional boundaries reduce internal chaos. They anchor self-respect. When boundaries are challenged, expect resistance initially. Old patterns resist change. Consistency must remain intact. If she escalates when boundaries are enforced, remain calm. Escalation tests resolve. Resolve must hold. Do not negotiate standards during conflict. Negotiation under pressure weakens authority. Revisit discussion only when calm. Boundaries reveal truth. If respect grows, relationship stabilizes. If hostility increases, clarity deepens. Either outcome informs next steps. Avoiding overcorrection. Some men swing from weak boundaries to rigid control. This shift is reactionary. It invites counter-conflict. Boundaries should protect dignity, not impose dominance. They should be firm without cruelty. They should be calm without aggression. Avoid punitive enforcement. Avoid public humiliation. Preserve integrity. Strength is measured by restraint, not force. The emotional shift of enforced standards. When boundaries are enforced consistently, something changes internally. Self-respect increases. Anxiety decreases. You feel less reactive. You feel more grounded. You feel more in control. Even if conflict persists, your internal stability grows. Clarity replaces confusion. Conviction replaces doubt. This internal shift matters more than external reaction. Boundaries as leadership. Leadership in marriage requires standards. Standards communicate value. Value communicates identity. Without standards, respect erodes. With standards, stability strengthens. Consistency defines authority. Leadership does not require shouting. It requires calm enforcement. It requires internal clarity. Boundaries that hold create emotional safety. They prevent chaos from dominating daily life. They anchor stability in uncertain dynamics. When your standards are clear and consistently enforced, manipulation weakens. When manipulation weakens, clarity grows. When clarity grows, power returns inward. Boundaries that hold are not about control. They are about protection. They are about preserving dignity and building strength through disciplined action. Chapter 11. Prepared, not paranoid. Legal awareness as quiet strength in high-conflict marriage. Legal awareness without panic. When conflict intensifies inside a narcissistic marriage, legal fears often begin to surface. You may worry about custody. You may worry about finances. Fear can push you into impulsive decisions. Anger can tempt you toward threats. Panic clouds judgment. Legal awareness is not about escalating conflict. It is about understanding your position calmly. It is about preparation without aggression. Strength in this phase is quiet. It does not require announcements. It requires information and discipline. You do not prepare because you want war. You prepare because stability demands foresight. Documentation strategies. Documentation is one of the most powerful protective tools available. It creates clarity. It preserves facts. Keep records of significant interactions. Note dates, times, and objective details. Avoid emotional commentary in written records. Save important messages and emails. Store them securely. Maintain backups in safe locations. Track parenting involvement. Record school events attended. Note medical appointments and daily responsibilities. Objective documentation strengthens credibility. It provides reference during disputes. It prevents distortion from dominating narrative. Documentation must remain factual. Exaggeration weakens its power. Accuracy strengthens it. Understanding custody dynamics. Custody outcomes often depend on patterns of involvement and stability. Courts typically prioritize children's welfare. Consistency and reliability matter. Active participation in your children's lives builds foundation. Attend events regularly. Maintain steady routines. Avoid volatile behavior. Public outbursts harm credibility. Calm conduct strengthens position. Understand that emotional accusations may surface. Preparation reduces vulnerability. Documentation counters distortion. Custody is not won through anger. It is influenced by demonstrated stability. Your composure becomes evidence. Avoiding reactive legal mistakes. Anger may tempt you to issue threats during arguments. Statements about divorce or custody may be thrown impulsively. Such declarations escalate tension. Avoid discussing legal intentions during emotional conflict. Threats weaken leverage. Silence preserves strategy. Do not empty accounts impulsively. Do not retaliate financially. Do not send hostile messages. Impulsive actions create legal exposure. Measured discipline prevents regret. Strategic patience protects stability. Legal mistakes often arise from emotional reactivity. Regulation prevents self-sabotage. Quiet consultation. Seeking legal advice does not require public disclosure. Private consultation provides clarity. Knowledge reduces anxiety. Understand your rights calmly. Ask questions about custody, property, and financial division. Gather information without declaring war. Consultation does not obligate immediate action. It provides perspective. Perspective strengthens confidence. Silence about consultation protects leverage. Announcing strategy invites escalation. Quiet preparation preserves control. Financial awareness and legal readiness. Financial clarity supports legal stability. Know assets clearly. Understand debts fully. Keep copies of tax returns. Maintain records of joint accounts. Document significant purchases. Avoid hiding assets dishonestly. Integrity strengthens credibility. Transparency protects position. If separation becomes necessary, financial organization reduces chaos. Clarity prevents panic. Preparation reduces fear. Emotional control during legal tension. If legal processes begin, emotions intensify quickly. Accusations may escalate. Public narratives may expand. Your composure matters more than ever. Avoid responding to provocation in writing impulsively. Pause before sending messages. Every written communication may become evidence. Tone matters. Clarity matters. Remain respectful in all correspondence. Short, factual responses protect credibility. Avoid emotional language. Legal strength often lies in restraint. Preparation without escalation. Preparation does not require visible hostility. It can coexist with calm, daily interaction. You do not need to broadcast readiness. Maintain normal routines. Continue fulfilling responsibilities. Avoid dramatic behavioral shifts. Escalation invites counteraction. Quiet discipline avoids unnecessary conflict. Stability remains your foundation. Preparation is internal. It is strategic. It is deliberate. Recognizing false allegations risks. In high conflict dynamics, false allegations sometimes arise. Preparation reduces vulnerability. Composure reduces credibility gaps. Avoid volatile confrontations. Do not engage in shouting matches. Maintain witness awareness during heated discussions. If conflict escalates physically, disengage immediately. Safety first. Documentation follows. False allegations thrive in chaos. Calm behavior reduces opportunity. Stability protects reputation. The role of character in legal outcomes. Courts often assess character indirectly. Patterns of behavior matter. Consistency builds trustworthiness. Demonstrate responsibility consistently. Maintain employment stability. Honor commitments reliably. Avoid public attacks online. Avoid posting inflammatory content. Digital restraint preserves credibility. Character is cumulative. Your daily conduct shapes perception. Integrity strengthens position. Managing fear and anxiety. Legal uncertainty triggers fear. Fear can drive impulsive behavior. Grounded awareness reduces panic. Focus on controllable factors. Maintain physical health. Preserve routine. Avoid catastrophic thinking. Legal processes often unfold slowly. Time allows preparation. Anxiety decreases with knowledge. Information reduces speculation. Clarity restores steadiness. Preparing emotionally for possible outcomes. Not every preparation leads to separation. Some situations stabilize. Others progress toward dissolution. Prepare emotionally for both possibilities. Avoid attaching identity to outcome. Focus on internal stability. If reconciliation occurs, preparation still strengthens awareness. If separation occurs, readiness reduces chaos. Either path benefits from clarity. Emotional readiness supports rational decision-making. Avoiding legal manipulation traps. If legal threats are used as intimidation, remain calm. Do not respond with counter-threats. Seek private counsel instead. Intimidation thrives on reaction. Calm reduces its power. Knowledge dissolves fear. If served with documents, respond through proper channels. Follow legal guidance precisely. Avoid emotional confrontation. Discipline during this phase defines strength. The power of patience. Legal processes require patience. Immediate resolution rarely occurs. Rushed decisions create regret. Maintain steady routines. Stay focused on responsibilities. Allow time to reveal clarity. Patience preserves mental health. It prevents impulsive compromise. It strengthens long-term stability. Reclaiming personal agency. Legal awareness restores agency. Fear diminishes when options are understood. Clarity reduces helplessness. Preparation builds confidence. Confidence reduces reactivity. Reduced reactivity strengthens outcomes. You cannot control every variable. You can control preparation. You can control conduct. Preparedness is strength without aggression. It is readiness without panic. It is foresight anchored in composure. Legal awareness is not about fighting. It is about protecting stability. It is about ensuring that if conflict expands beyond marriage, you are steady and informed. Prepared, not paranoid. Informed, not impulsive. Disciplined, not reactive. That posture preserves dignity in uncertain terrain. Chapter 12. Reclaiming Inner Authority. Restoring self-respect in the face of contempt and chronic criticism. Self-respect in the face of contempt. Contempt corrodes slowly. It rarely begins with open hostility. It seeps into tone, expression, and subtle remarks. A sarcastic comment here, an eye roll there, a dismissive sigh during conversation. Over time, these small gestures accumulate. They create an atmosphere of disrespect. They undermine your sense of worth. Contempt differs from frustration. Frustration addresses behavior. Contempt attacks identity. When contempt becomes routine, self-respect weakens. You begin questioning your competence. You begin shrinking your presence. Reclaiming inner authority begins with recognizing contempt clearly. It requires naming the pattern internally. It requires refusing to normalize it. How contempt erodes masculinity. Masculinity is not dominance. It is grounded stability. It is self-trust and calm leadership. Chronic contempt destabilizes that grounding. Repeated belittling chips away at confidence. Public humiliation intensifies the erosion. You may feel hesitant to speak. You may downplay achievements. You may silence your opinions. Masculine stability is not loud. It is steady. Contempt aims to destabilize that steadiness. If you internalize contempt, you begin doubting your value. Self-doubt leads to passivity. Passivity reinforces disrespect. The cycle strengthens unless interrupted, separating her voice from your identity. Repeated criticism can merge with self-perception. Her voice may echo in your mind. You may anticipate criticism before it occurs. Separating external judgment from internal identity is essential. Ask yourself whether the critique reflects fact or projection. Evaluate objectively. Not all criticism is false. Balanced self-reflection matters, but chronic contempt often exaggerates or distorts. Do not absorb every negative comment as truth. Filter through evidence. Ground evaluation in reality. Identity must remain self-defined. External voices cannot dictate self-worth. Inner authority depends on this separation. Restoring competence and confidence. Confidence grows from competence. Competence grows from discipline. Discipline restores structure. Engage in areas where skill increases steadily. Physical training builds resilience. Professional development strengthens capability. Hobbies and crafts rebuild autonomy. Learning creates momentum. Progress restores pride. When your life expands beyond the marriage dynamic, confidence strengthens. You remember who you are. You regain perspective. Contempt loses power when competence grows. Internal evidence outweighs external distortion. Personal standards over emotional approval. If your self-worth depends on her approval, vulnerability increases. Approval may fluctuate. Standards remain constant. Define your personal values clearly. Integrity, responsibility, consistency, respect, discipline. Measure yourself against these standards. Not against fluctuating opinions. Not against emotional intensity. Emotional approval is unstable. Personal standards are stable. Stability restores authority. Rebuilding through physical discipline. The body influences the mind. Physical discipline strengthens emotional resilience. Routine builds confidence. Strength training increases endurance. Cardiovascular exercise reduces stress. Consistency builds self-trust. When you maintain physical discipline, posture changes. Energy improves. Mental clarity sharpens. Physical competence reinforces identity. It communicates capability internally. It counters feelings of inadequacy. This is not vanity. It is restoration, reclaiming intellectual autonomy. Contempt often dismisses your ideas. Your insights may be mocked. Your reasoning may be minimized. Rebuild intellectual confidence through learning. Read consistently. Engage in thoughtful discussion outside the marriage. Write your thoughts privately. Clarify perspectives on paper. Strengthen reasoning skills. Intellectual autonomy protects identity. It prevents mental dependency. It reinforces internal conviction. Confidence in thought reduces vulnerability to distortion. Emotional self-validation. Self-validation differs from arrogance. It means acknowledging your emotional experience as legitimate. It means respecting your internal reactions. If a comment feels disrespectful, note it honestly. If a pattern feels unfair, recognize it calmly. Do not dismiss instinct reflexively. Validate feelings internally before seeking external confirmation. This strengthens emotional independence. It reduces desperation for reassurance. Self-validation fosters stability. It protects against internalized contempt. It restores balance, avoiding overcompensation. Some men respond to contempt with exaggerated dominance. They become rigid. They become authoritarian. This reaction often deepens conflict. It does not restore respect. It reinforces instability. True authority is calm. It does not require volume. It does not demand submission. Avoid swinging toward aggression. Steadiness commands more respect than force. Measured responses restore dignity. Reconnecting with brotherhood and community. Isolation intensifies internal erosion. Community restores perspective. Healthy male connection reinforces identity. Engage with grounded peers. Participate in structured environments. Rebuild relational strength outside the marriage. Healthy environments remind you of your value. They counter distorted narratives. They strengthen emotional resilience. Brotherhood is not about gossip. It is about accountability and growth. It reinforces stability, reframing criticism constructively. Not every critique is manipulation. Separate constructive feedback from contempt. This distinction prevents overreaction. If feedback addresses behavior respectfully, evaluate it. If it attacks identity repeatedly, reject internalization. Discernment protects clarity. Constructive criticism refines strength. Contempt erodes dignity. Recognize the difference clearly. Balanced evaluation strengthens maturity. Developing internal dialogue discipline. Inner dialogue shapes identity. If internal speech mirrors contempt, erosion continues. Interrupt negative loops intentionally. Replace distorted thoughts with evidence-based clarity. Focus on achievements. Focus on growth. Affirm discipline rather than perfection. Progress rather than flaw. Stability rather than approval. Internal dialogue discipline strengthens mental resilience. The quiet power of self-control. Self-control restores dignity. It prevents reactive outbursts. It reinforces internal strength. When contempt arises, pause. Respond calmly or disengage. Maintain posture and tone. Self-control communicates confidence. It denies reinforcement to disrespect. It preserves composure. Composure under contempt demonstrates authority more effectively than confrontation. Reclaiming leadership within yourself. Leadership begins internally. It is the ability to guide your own responses. It is the refusal to be defined by distortion. When you anchor identity in values rather than approval, strength grows. When you measure worth by discipline rather than praise, confidence stabilizes. When you remain steady under pressure, authority returns. Leadership does not require her validation. It requires your consistency. It requires your clarity. The steady rebuild. Restoration is gradual. Confidence returns incrementally. Self-respect rebuilds through action. Every disciplined habit reinforces identity. Every calm response strengthens authority. Every boundary upheld protects dignity. You do not reclaim authority overnight. You reclaim it through repetition, through consistency, through clarity. Self-respect in the face of contempt requires courage. It requires discernment. It requires unwavering steadiness. When you separate her voice from your identity, strengthen competence, and anchor standards internally, contempt loses power. Your inner authority stabilizes. Your presence strengthens. Authority reclaimed internally transforms everything externally. Chapter 13. Healing the Invisible Wounds. Understanding emotional abuse, trauma, and the path back to mental clarity. Emotional abuse and trauma recovery. Emotional abuse does not leave visible scars. It leaves confusion. It leaves instability in perception. When criticism becomes chronic, when gaslighting becomes routine, when contempt becomes normalized, the nervous system adapts. You may not recognize the depth of impact immediately, but the effects accumulate over time. Emotional abuse is not defined by a single argument. It is defined by patterns. It is defined by repetition. Trauma is not limited to physical danger. Psychological unpredictability can also create trauma responses. Chronic stress alters the body and mind. Recovery begins with naming the experience accurately. It requires honesty without exaggeration. It requires clarity without self-condemnation. Symptoms of emotional abuse. Emotional abuse often produces subtle but persistent symptoms. You may experience heightened anxiety. You may feel constant mental fatigue. Sleep may become disrupted. Racing thoughts may increase at night. You may replay conversations repeatedly. Self-doubt becomes common. Decision-making feels heavier. Confidence fluctuates. You may feel hyper-aware of tone changes. You may anticipate conflict even during calm moments. You may brace yourself emotionally before conversations. These symptoms are not weakness. They are stress responses. They reflect prolonged instability. Cognitive confusion and hypervigilance. Hypervigilance develops when unpredictability becomes normal. You scan for subtle cues. You analyze facial expressions and tone shifts. Your nervous system remains on alert. Relaxation feels temporary. Calm feels fragile. Cognitive confusion accompanies repeated gaslighting. You question memory accuracy. You doubt interpretation. Hypervigilance consumes energy. It reduces focus in other areas of life. It creates chronic exhaustion. This state is not sustainable long-term. It requires intentional recovery. It requires deliberate calming practices. The nervous system under chronic stress. The body responds to perceived threat automatically. Stress hormones rise. Heart rate increases. When stress becomes chronic, the body remains activated. Digestion may be affected. Muscle tension increases. Irritability may become frequent. Patience may decline. Focus may weaken. Prolonged activation impacts physical health. Immune function may weaken. Energy reserves decline. Understanding this biological component reduces shame. You are not overly sensitive. Your body is responding to instability, trauma bonding, and emotional dependency. Emotional abuse often intertwines with intermittent warmth. Moments of affection may follow conflict. This creates psychological confusion. The relief after tension can feel intense. It reinforces attachment. It strengthens dependency. Trauma bonding is rooted in unpredictability. The brain becomes conditioned to seek reconciliation. You crave the relief more than stability. Recognizing this bond is crucial. It explains lingering attachment. It reduces self-judgment. Awareness breaks illusion. Clarity reduces dependency. Stability replaces emotional chaos. Reclaiming mental clarity. Clarity returns gradually. It requires distance from emotional intensity. It requires deliberate grounding. Journaling can restore perspective. Writing events factually rebuilds cognitive trust. Patterns become visible on paper. Limit circular rumination. Set time boundaries for reflection. Avoid replaying arguments endlessly. Engage in structured routines. Predictability restores nervous system balance. Routine reduces mental fragmentation. Clarity grows when chaos decreases. The role of individual therapy. Professional guidance can support recovery. Individual therapy provides neutral perspective. It strengthens self-awareness. Therapy is not about blame. It is about understanding patterns. It is about restoring mental stability. A skilled therapist can identify trauma responses. They can teach grounding techniques. They can help untangle distorted beliefs. Therapy fosters cognitive restructuring. It restores balanced perception. It rebuilds confidence gradually. Seeking support demonstrates strength. It signals commitment to healing. It accelerates recovery, rebuilding self-trust. Emotional abuse erodes trust in perception. Recovery requires rebuilding that trust deliberately. Start with small decisions. Trust simple judgments. Make minor choices independently. Observe positive outcomes. Celebrate small acts of assertiveness. Notice calm responses under pressure. Acknowledge progress consistently. Self-trust grows through evidence. Repeated success reinforces confidence. Confidence stabilizes identity. Internal authority strengthens gradually. Managing triggers. Triggers are reminders of past instability. A raised voice may activate anxiety. A dismissive tone may spark fear. Recognize triggers without shame. Pause when activated. Breathe deliberately. Label the trigger internally. Remind yourself of present safety. Return to grounded posture. Trigger management reduces escalation. It strengthens regulation. It restores control over response. Emotional release without destruction. Suppressed emotion can build pressure. Anger, sadness, and frustration require safe release. Destructive release harms stability. Physical activity dissipates stress hormones. Controlled breathing reduces intensity. Writing clarifies emotion. Avoid venting in ways that escalate conflict. Avoid explosive confrontations. Choose constructive outlets. Healthy release accelerates recovery. It prevents emotional overflow. It strengthens composure. Reconstructing identity after erosion. Emotional abuse often distorts identity. You may forget personal strengths. You may question long-held values. Revisit your core principles. List personal achievements. Reconnect with passions. Engage in environments where you feel competent. Skill building restores confidence. Achievement rebuilds pride. Identity reconstruction is active work. It requires deliberate focus. It restores stability. The power of physical reset. Physical routines accelerate healing. Regular exercise stabilizes mood. Sleep hygiene restores clarity. Nutrition impacts cognitive function. Hydration affects energy. Consistent habits anchor recovery. The body and mind are interconnected. Physical discipline supports emotional regulation. Restoration becomes holistic. Small daily habits produce cumulative impact. Developing resilient thinking patterns. Cognitive resilience requires disciplined thought. Challenge distorted beliefs. Replace exaggeration with evidence. Avoid absolute thinking. Life is rarely always or never. Moderation strengthens clarity. Recognize self-critical narratives shaped by contempt. Replace them with balanced evaluation. Affirm growth rather than flaw. Resilient thinking reduces anxiety. It restores perspective. It strengthens mental independence. From survival to healing. Survival mode focuses on immediate stability. Healing focuses on long-term restoration. Both require discipline. As stability increases, deeper healing begins. Reflection replaces reaction. Clarity replaces confusion. You may grieve lost time. You may process anger or disappointment. Allow space for emotion. Healing is not linear. Progress includes setbacks. Consistency produces growth. Building a stable future. Recovery prepares you for future decisions. Whether staying or separating, clarity matters. Healing strengthens judgment. When trauma responses decrease, perception sharpens. When anxiety lowers, discernment improves. When self-trust returns, authority stabilizes. Healing the invisible wounds is not about erasing the past. It is about integrating experience without being defined by it. It is about moving from confusion to grounded clarity. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. You are restoring mental sovereignty through discipline, awareness, and steady growth. Chapter 14. The Exit Strategy Framework. When staying is no longer sustainable and strength requires separation. Recognizing the breaking point. There comes a moment in some marriages when endurance no longer equals strength. When effort no longer produces improvement. When clarity replaces hope. The breaking point is not defined by a single argument. It is defined by accumulated patterns. It is the realization that stability cannot grow inside repeated chaos. You may notice emotional exhaustion becoming constant. You may feel drained even during calm periods. You may recognize that respect is not returning despite boundaries. The breaking point is rarely explosive. It is often quiet. It is a sober acknowledgement that the dynamic is unsustainable. Recognizing this moment requires honesty. not anger, not revenge. Just clarity. Distinguishing temporary strain from structural damage. Every marriage experiences seasons of strain. Stress from work. Stress from parenting. Temporary strain improves with effort and accountability. Structural damage does not. Patterns reveal the difference. If contempt persists despite boundaries, structure may be broken. If gaslighting continues despite clarity, structure may be broken. If emotional abuse repeats without remorse, structure may be broken. Temporary strain invites repair. Structural damage requires deeper evaluation. Discernment prevents premature exit and prevents prolonged harm. Preparing quietly and strategically. If separation becomes a serious consideration, preparation must be calm. Emotional declarations during conflict weaken leverage. Strategic planning strengthens stability. Preparation includes financial organization. Documentation must remain complete. Legal awareness should be established privately. Do not broadcast intention prematurely. Announcements invite escalation. Quiet discipline protects stability. Continue fulfilling responsibilities consistently. Maintain involvement with children. Preserve professional reputation. Preparation is not betrayal. It is prudence. Emotional readiness versus impulsive escape. Leaving impulsively during heightened conflict can create chaos. Emotional readiness requires internal steadiness. It requires clarity without rage. Ask yourself whether the decision is driven by panic. Ask whether it is driven by sustained pattern recognition. Ask whether you can remain calm through transition. If anger dominates, pause. Process emotion privately. Reassess once steady. Emotional readiness strengthens long-term outcomes. Impulsive escape complicates them. Stability must guide action. Safety planning. If emotional volatility escalates toward unpredictability, safety planning becomes essential. This does not mean assuming violence. It means preparing responsibly. Identify secure housing options. Maintain access to essential documents. Ensure emergency contacts are informed discreetly if necessary. Avoid confrontations that escalate physical tension. If discussions intensify, disengage calmly. Prioritize safety over proving a point. Preparation reduces fear. Fear clouds judgment. Clarity preserves stability. Protecting children during transition. If children are involved, transition must prioritize their stability. Avoid discussing separation during arguments. Plan communication carefully. Present decisions calmly when the time arrives. Avoid blame. Avoid detailed accusations. Reassure children consistently. Maintain routine as much as possible. Emphasize continued love and presence. Children do not need adult conflict details. They need predictability. They need emotional safety. The role of counseling during decision phase. Individual counseling can clarify readiness. It can reduce impulsivity. It can strengthen emotional grounding. Joint counseling may still be attempted if genuine accountability appears. But do not use counseling as a delaying tactic if patterns remain unchanged. Discernment must guide participation. Therapeutic clarity supports rational decisions. Rational decisions prevent regret. Financial separation strategy. If separation becomes imminent, financial separation must be structured carefully. Avoid impulsive asset withdrawal. Avoid vindictive financial moves. Consult professionals discreetly. Understand division laws in your jurisdiction. Plan for sustainable living arrangements. Create independent banking arrangements responsibly. Ensure transparency where legally required. Maintain documentation integrity. Financial discipline during transition protects long-term stability. Managing public narrative during exit. Once separation becomes visible, narratives may intensify. Remain calm publicly. Avoid posting inflammatory content online. Respond to inquiries with minimal detail. State that differences exist without character attacks. Preserve dignity. Countersmearing during exit weakens position. Integrity strengthens credibility. Consistency builds trust over time. Emotional grief and adjustment. Even when separation is necessary, grief may arise. You may grieve the version of marriage you hoped for. You may grieve time invested. Allow space for grief without self-judgment. Strength does not eliminate sadness. It processes it constructively. Avoid numbing through unhealthy habits. Maintain routines. Engage support systems. Grief processed calmly accelerates healing. Suppressed grief prolongs confusion. Building a new routine. After separation, routine becomes critical. Daily structure restores stability. Consistency reduces anxiety. Establish predictable sleep schedules. Maintain physical exercise. Engage in purposeful work. Create structured time with children if applicable. Maintain consistent communication patterns. Prioritize reliability. Routine builds psychological safety. It anchors transition. Avoiding post-separation conflict escalation. Separation does not automatically end conflict. Boundaries must remain firm. Communication must remain concise. Use written communication when necessary. Keep tone factual. Avoid emotional exchanges. Do not revisit old arguments repeatedly. Focus on logistical coordination. Preserve mental energy. Post-separation composure strengthens long-term peace. Rebuilding identity outside the marriage. Separation creates space for identity reconstruction. Rediscover interests. Rebuild friendships. Invest in personal development. Strengthen professional growth. Expand community engagement. Identity rebuilding restores confidence. It shifts focus from loss to growth. It strengthens resilience. You are not defined solely by marriage status. You are defined by character and discipline. Accepting the weight of decision. Ending a marriage carries weight. It affects family, finances, and future direction. The decision should be sober. Once clarity solidifies, commit without wavering. Doubt weakens progress. Resolve strengthens transition. Accept responsibility for your choice calmly. Avoid rewriting history to justify it emotionally. Acknowledge complexity honestly. Strength lies in accountability. From survival to self-directed stability. The exit strategy framework is not about revenge. It is about sustainability. It is about protecting mental health and dignity. When staying perpetuates erosion, separation may restore stability. When boundaries fail repeatedly, structural change may be required. When clarity outweighs hope, action becomes necessary. The exit is not escape. It is strategic repositioning. It is reclaiming direction over your life. Quiet preparation, disciplined execution, and emotional steadiness define strength in this phase. Not rage, not chaos. Strength during separation is measured by composure. Clarity guides movement. Discipline protects the future. When staying is no longer sustainable, leaving can become an act of self-respect grounded in calm conviction and steady resolve. Chapter 15. Divorce without destruction. Maintaining stability, dignity, and strategic control during legal separation. Maintaining composure during proceedings. Divorce is not only a legal process, it is an emotional storm layered on structured procedure. If composure collapses, strategy collapses with it. Court systems move slowly. Emotions move quickly. Your strength lies in resisting impulsive reaction. Anger may surface frequently. Accusations may intensify. Narratives may distort further. Every reaction you display becomes part of the environment surrounding the case. Maintain calm tone in communication. Avoid inflammatory language. Your behavior during proceedings shapes perception. Stability becomes your strongest asset. Restraint becomes leverage. Composure is not passive. It is disciplined. It is deliberate control over self. Avoiding revenge behavior. Revenge feels tempting when betrayal and disrespect accumulate. You may want to expose wrongdoing publicly. You may want to retaliate financially or emotionally. Revenge weakens long-term outcomes. It invites escalation. It damages credibility. Divorce is a legal restructuring, not a battlefield for emotional revenge. The court values reason over rage. Strategic calm outperforms emotional retaliation. Avoid inflammatory social media posts. Avoid speaking negatively in public forums. Avoid manipulative tactics. Integrity protects you legally and psychologically. Revenge prolongs entanglement. Restraint accelerates closure. Protecting children from courtroom trauma. Children are deeply affected by parental conflict. Court proceedings can intensify emotional strain. Your role is to shield them. Do not discuss legal strategies with them. Do not criticize their mother in their presence. Do not seek emotional validation from them. If custody evaluations occur, remain composed and consistent. Demonstrate stability through routine. Maintain respectful communication. Children observe behavior carefully. They internalize tone and posture. Your steadiness becomes their anchor. Reassure them repeatedly of your love and presence. Keep schedules predictable. Prioritize emotional safety. Divorce does not end fatherhood. It redefines structure. Leadership remains essential. Playing the long game. Divorce rewards patience. Quick emotional victories often create long-term setbacks. Think beyond immediate confrontation. Negotiate strategically. Avoid impulsive concessions. Seek balanced outcomes rather than total dominance. The long game prioritizes stability years ahead. Financial sustainability matters more than symbolic wins. Co-parenting functionality matters more than short-term validation. Ask yourself how each decision will affect you 5 years from now. Ask how it will affect your children long-term. Let future clarity guide present action. Patience reduces regret. Strategy outlasts emotion. Managing legal communication. Written communication during divorce is often scrutinized. Assume every message may be reviewed in court. Write accordingly. Keep messages factual and concise. Avoid sarcasm. Avoid emotional tone. If provoked through text or email, delay response. Draft calmly. Review before sending. Professional tone protects credibility. Clarity reduces misinterpretation. Restraint strengthens perception. Avoid phone arguments that escalate. Use written channels when appropriate. Documentation protects you. Financial discipline during divorce. Financial stress intensifies during separation. Legal fees accumulate. Asset division creates uncertainty. Maintain organized records. Track expenses carefully. Follow legal guidance precisely. Avoid hidden spending. Avoid secretive asset transfers. Transparency protects position. Budget realistically for post-divorce life. Plan for sustainable housing. Consider long-term obligations. Financial discipline during this period stabilizes future recovery. Impulsivity creates setbacks. Calm planning restores control. Emotional regulation in high-conflict proceedings. High-conflict divorces often include provocation. Allegations may surface unexpectedly. Mediation sessions may feel tense. Practice emotional regulation deliberately. Breathe slowly before responding. Maintain measured tone. Do not argue directly in court settings. Let legal counsel guide formal responses. Avoid emotional outbursts. Composure influences perception strongly. Judges observe demeanor. Steadiness builds trust. Responding to false allegations. If false allegations arise, panic weakens clarity. Remain grounded. Rely on documentation. Consult legal counsel immediately. Follow structured advice. Avoid direct confrontation about the accusation. Let evidence speak. Maintain professional demeanor. Preserve integrity consistently. False narratives lose strength when unsupported by evidence. Your calm reinforces credibility. Building a stable co-parenting framework. After divorce, co-parenting becomes the new structure. Emotional history should not dictate parenting behavior. Boundaries must remain clear. Use structured communication tools if necessary. Keep discussions child-focused. Avoid revisiting marital conflict. Parallel parenting may be appropriate in high-conflict scenarios. Limit direct interaction. Maintain predictable exchange routines. Children benefit from consistency. They need to see maturity. They need emotional safety. Your leadership in this phase shapes long-term relationships. Avoiding public narrative battles. Public disputes during divorce can escalate rapidly. Friends and extended family may take sides. Social media can amplify tension. Resist the urge to broadcast grievances. Protect privacy. Protect dignity. Let others speculate if they choose. You do not owe detailed explanations. Silence often preserves credibility. Over time, conduct reveals character. Consistency builds reputation. Calm speaks louder than accusation. Accepting the emotional aftermath. Divorce brings complex emotions. Relief may coexist with sadness. Freedom may coexist with grief. Allow emotional processing without shame. Seek healthy outlets. Avoid destructive coping mechanisms. Routine stabilizes emotional swings. Exercise reduces stress hormones. Community reinforces support. Healing continues beyond legal finalization. Stability requires patience. Growth requires reflection. Reconstructing identity after legal separation. Marriage shapes identity. Divorce reshapes it. Intentional reconstruction strengthens recovery. Revisit personal goals. Clarify values independently. Invest in personal development. Professional growth may accelerate. Social networks may expand. New routines create structure. Identity rebuilding is not reactive. It is strategic. It is self-directed. You are more than marital history. You are defined by conduct and discipline. Learning from the experience. Reflection transforms pain into growth. Identify warning signs you ignored. Recognize patterns you tolerated. Use clarity to refine boundaries. Strengthen discernment. Increase self-awareness. Growth prevents repetition. Self-awareness protects future stability. Discipline strengthens resilience. Divorce does not define failure. It reveals learning opportunity. It reshapes direction, preserving dignity through the process. Dignity is maintained through restraint, through measured speech, through consistent behavior. Avoid bitterness dominating conversation. Avoid defining identity through conflict. Avoid reliving arguments endlessly. Let closure come gradually. Allow stability to replace chaos. Focus forward rather than backward. Divorce without destruction is possible. It requires composure. It requires discipline. It requires understanding that the legal process is only one chapter of life. Your future depends on how you carry yourself through it. Strength during divorce is quiet, steady, and strategic. Dignity preserved today builds stability tomorrow. Chapter 16. Life after separation. Rebuilding identity, routine, and personal strength after the storm. The emotional detox phase. Separation brings silence. Silence after prolonged conflict can feel unfamiliar. It can feel peaceful and unsettling at the same time. Your nervous system may still expect chaos. You may anticipate criticism that no longer comes. You may feel emotional echoes of past tension. This period is emotional detox. Your body and mind are recalibrating. They are adjusting to reduced volatility. Mood swings may occur. Moments of relief may be followed by sadness. Clarity may alternate with doubt. Detox is not regression. It is release. It is the system recalibrating after chronic stress. Allow emotions to surface without judgment. Process them deliberately. Avoid suppressing discomfort through distraction alone. Healing accelerates when emotions are acknowledged calmly. Rediscovering structure and discipline. After separation, time expands. You may suddenly have unstructured evenings. You may feel uncertain about routine. Structure restores stability. Wake up at consistent times. Maintain physical discipline. Schedule work intentionally. Engage in purposeful activities. Create predictable weekly rhythms. Routine rebuilds psychological safety. It reduces drifting. It strengthens internal control. Without structure, isolation may deepen. With structure, progress becomes measurable. Discipline restores identity, reclaiming physical strength. Physical health often declines during prolonged conflict. Stress hormones deplete energy. Sleep disruption weakens resilience. Rebuilding begins with movement. Strength training enhances confidence. Cardiovascular exercise reduces anxiety. Consistent physical discipline rebuilds self-trust. It restores posture. It sharpens mental clarity. Physical improvement reflects internal progress. It reinforces stability. It rebuilds pride. The body becomes an ally in recovery. Consistency matters more than intensity. Steady effort restores balance. Managing loneliness without regression. Loneliness is common after separation. Silence can amplify reflection. Memories may resurface unexpectedly. Loneliness does not equal failure. It signals transition. It requires constructive response. Avoid impulsive contact driven by nostalgia. Avoid seeking validation from unhealthy sources. Avoid numbing through destructive habits. Engage in social environments intentionally. Reconnect with grounded friendships. Build supportive community gradually. Loneliness diminishes through connection and purpose. Purpose anchors stability. Community reinforces growth. Restoring emotional stability. Emotional equilibrium returns incrementally. Triggers may still arise. Old arguments may replay mentally. Interrupt rumination deliberately. Shift focus to present tasks. Practice grounding techniques consistently. Limit exposure to past conflict reminders when possible. Do not revisit old messages unnecessarily. Protect mental space. Emotional stability grows through repetition of calm habits. Daily discipline reinforces confidence. Progress accumulates steadily. Redefining personal purpose. Marriage may have shaped daily identity. After separation, purpose must be rediscovered. Clarity replaces confusion gradually. Reflect on long-term goals. Reevaluate career direction. Identify passions neglected previously. Purpose strengthens resilience. It provides forward momentum. It reduces fixation on the past. Define what kind of man you intend to become. List personal standards clearly. Commit to measurable progress. Purpose-driven living replaces reactive existence. Rebuilding financial independence. Post-separation finances require clarity. Adjust budgeting realistically. Plan for sustainable living. Avoid lifestyle inflation prematurely. Stability must precede expansion. Consistency ensures recovery. Track expenses carefully. Establish emergency reserves. Prioritize long-term financial health. Financial independence strengthens psychological independence. It reduces anxiety. It reinforces autonomy. Navigating co-parenting after separation. If children are involved, structure becomes critical. Maintain predictable schedules. Honor commitments consistently. Communicate concisely with your former spouse. Focus on logistics rather than emotion. Avoid revisiting past conflict. Children benefit from visible stability. Remain calm during exchanges. Demonstrate reliability consistently. Your steady presence reassures them. Consistency builds trust. Trust supports long-term resilience. Reconstructing identity beyond the marriage. Separation allows space for rediscovery. Interests previously sidelined can re-emerge. Creative pursuits can resume. Invest in self-development. Acquire new skills. Pursue educational opportunities. Identity reconstruction strengthens confidence. It reinforces autonomy. It fosters growth. You are not defined by marital outcome. You are defined by ongoing discipline. Progress shapes identity forward. Processing residual anger. Anger may linger. Resentment may surface unexpectedly. These emotions require constructive handling. Channel anger into disciplined action. Avoid venting destructively. Use it as fuel for improvement. Journaling clarifies unresolved thoughts. Therapeutic dialogue supports processing. Physical exertion releases tension. Anger integrated calmly becomes motivation. Anger suppressed becomes volatility. Intentional processing transforms energy. Avoiding rebound relationships. After separation, the desire for validation may intensify. Attention feels affirming. Affection feels relieving. Avoid rushing into new relationships prematurely. Emotional detox requires time. Clarity must precede connection. Learn from past patterns. Strengthen boundaries. Stabilize identity independently. Rushing risks repetition. Patience protects growth. Stability attracts healthier dynamics later. Strengthening mental resilience. Mental resilience develops through disciplined thought. Challenge catastrophic thinking. Focus on controllable variables. Establish daily affirmations rooted in action. Review progress weekly. Set incremental goals. Resilience builds gradually. Each disciplined decision reinforces stability. Consistency creates confidence. Recovery is not linear. Setbacks occur. Return to structure promptly. Embracing solitude as strength. Solitude differs from loneliness. It is intentional time alone. It fosters self-awareness. Use solitude productively. Reflect on values. Clarify direction. Avoid isolating emotionally. Balance solitude with healthy interaction. Moderation sustains mental health. Solitude strengthens independence. It rebuilds identity. It restores internal calm. Measuring growth objectively. Track improvements deliberately. Note emotional triggers that decrease in intensity. Record physical health progress. Observe communication improvements. Recognize increased confidence. Acknowledge personal discipline. Measurement reinforces motivation. It confirms change. It strengthens resolve. Growth becomes visible when tracked consistently. From survival to forward momentum. Separation initially feels like survival. Gradually, it becomes opportunity. Clarity replaces chaos. Routine stabilizes daily life. Purpose shapes direction. Discipline rebuilds identity. You are no longer reacting constantly. You are choosing intentionally. You are rebuilding deliberately. Life after separation is not defined by loss. It is defined by reconstruction. It is shaped by disciplined action. Through emotional detox, structured routine, physical discipline, financial independence, and purposeful growth, stability returns steadily. Strength emerges gradually. Clarity deepens consistently. The storm may have ended externally. Now the rebuild defines your trajectory forward. Chapter 17. The Return to Grounded Strength. Reclaiming masculine stability through calm leadership and internal validation. Reclaiming masculine stability. After prolonged emotional conflict and potential separation, masculinity must be rebuilt intentionally. Not as dominance, not as aggression. Masculine stability is grounded presence. It is emotional control under pressure. It is clarity without hostility. In narcissistic dynamics, masculinity is often distorted. You may have been labeled controlling for setting boundaries. You may have been called weak for expressing emotion. Reclaiming masculine stability requires redefining it accurately. Strength is steadiness. Authority is composure. The goal is not becoming louder. It is becoming calmer. It is becoming internally anchored. Calm strength over reactive energy. Reactive energy is loud and impulsive. Calm strength is measured and deliberate. Reactive behavior feels powerful in the moment, but weakens long-term stability. Calm strength requires discipline. It requires pause before response. It requires evaluation before speech. When confronted, remain steady. When challenged, remain composed. When criticized, assess before reacting. Calm strength shifts perception. It commands respect without demanding it. It communicates confidence without performance. This steadiness influences relationships, professional life, and fatherhood. It restores self-trust. It rebuilds authority. Leadership without dominance. True leadership is not control. It is influence rooted in integrity. It is guidance through example. Dominance seeks submission. Leadership seeks stability. Dominance demands obedience. Leadership earns trust. When you lead calmly, others respond differently. When you model composure, volatility decreases. In parenting, leadership means consistency. In professional life, leadership means reliability. In relationships, leadership means accountability. Dominance is reactive. Leadership is proactive. Proactive stability strengthens influence. Emotional strength without suppression. Emotional strength does not require emotional absence. Suppressing emotion creates internal pressure. Acknowledging emotion builds awareness. Allow yourself to feel anger without exploding. Allow yourself to feel sadness without collapsing. Process emotion deliberately. Speak honestly without hostility. Express boundaries without cruelty. Communicate clarity without defensiveness. Emotional maturity balances expression with restraint. It integrates feeling with discipline. It preserves strength without rigidity. Developing internal validation. External approval is unstable. Internal validation is sustainable. Confidence built on approval fluctuates. Confidence built on values endures. Define personal standards clearly. Measure yourself against them. If you act with integrity, acknowledge it. If you maintain discipline, recognize progress. If you improve daily habits, affirm growth. Internal validation reduces dependency on praise. It strengthens independence. It stabilizes identity. You no longer require applause to feel competent. You trust your own evaluation. You become self-directed. Rebuilding confidence through competence. Competence fuels authentic confidence. Skill building creates measurable progress. Progress strengthens belief in self. Invest in professional development. Enhance physical fitness. Develop communication skills. Each improvement reinforces capability. Capability reduces insecurity. Insecurity fuels reactive behavior. Confidence rooted in competence cannot be easily shaken. It reflects tangible effort. It radiates stability. Competence builds quiet authority, strengthening decision-making clarity. Decisiveness restores leadership. Indecision often stems from prolonged self-doubt. Clarity rebuilds direction. Practice small, decisive actions daily. Choose intentionally. Commit fully. Avoid overanalyzing minor decisions. Trust your evaluation. Accept responsibility calmly. Decision-making confidence grows through repetition. Consistency builds self-trust. Self-trust strengthens authority. Restoring social presence. Masculine stability influences social interaction. Posture shifts when confidence returns. Voice steadies. Maintain eye contact calmly. Speak clearly without rush. Listen attentively. Presence communicates strength more than volume. Quiet confidence influences perception. Stability draws respect, naturally. Social presence reflects internal grounding. Grounding emerges from discipline. Discipline sustains authority. Re-establishing boundaries without hostility. Post-separation or post-conflict life requires firm boundaries. Boundaries must remain steady. They must remain unemotional. State limits calmly. Enforce consistently. Avoid argumentation. Firmness does not require anger. Clarity does not require explanation beyond necessity. Consistency builds credibility. Boundaries anchored in calm leadership reinforce strength. The role of routine in masculine stability. Routine reinforces discipline. Discipline reinforces identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Wake at consistent times. Maintain structured physical activity. Plan daily priorities deliberately. Routine reduces emotional drift. It minimizes impulsivity. It strengthens resilience. Discipline becomes self-respect, enacted daily. Fatherhood and masculine influence. If you are a father, your rebuilt stability shapes the next generation. Children observe emotional regulation. They mirror composure. Demonstrate calm leadership consistently. Model respectful communication. Practice accountability visibly. Your steady presence influences their identity formation. It reinforces security. It builds generational resilience. Masculine stability extends beyond personal growth. It impacts legacy, avoiding arrogance in recovery. As confidence returns, arrogance can tempt expression. Avoid overcompensation. Avoid projecting superiority. True confidence remains humble. It does not need to announce itself. It does not seek validation aggressively. Arrogance isolates. Humility strengthens influence. Balanced strength builds lasting respect. Embracing responsibility fully. Masculine stability includes accountability for personal shortcomings. Reflect honestly on mistakes made during the marriage. Identify areas for growth. Accept responsibility calmly. Avoid self-condemnation. Focus on corrective action. Accountability strengthens credibility. It builds maturity. It reinforces leadership. Owning your growth prevents repetition of unhealthy patterns. Cultivating long-term vision. Short-term reactions limit growth. Long-term vision expands potential. Define a 5-year direction clearly. Clarify career goals. Clarify relationship standards. Clarify personal development targets. Vision anchors daily discipline. It provides motivation during setbacks. It reinforces purpose. Purpose-driven masculinity resists instability. From fragmentation to integration, high-conflict relationships fragment identity. Recovery integrates it. You become cohesive again. Your values align with behavior. Your actions reflect standards. Your posture reflects confidence. Integration restores authenticity. Authenticity strengthens presence. Presence commands respect. You no longer perform strength. You embody it. The steady man's standard. The steady man is not loud. He is grounded. He is disciplined. He regulates emotion under pressure. He communicates boundaries clearly. He acts with integrity consistently. He does not require dominance to feel strong. He does not seek validation compulsively. He measures himself by standards, not applause. This standard guides daily action. It anchors identity. It shapes future relationships. Reclaiming masculine stability is not about revenge or proving worth. It is about becoming internally anchored. It is about restoring authority over self. Calm leadership replaces reactive energy. Internal validation replaces approval seeking. Competence replaces insecurity. Grounded strength defines the next chapter of your life. It protects stability. It defines influence. You move forward not as a victim of conflict, but as a man recentered in clarity, discipline, and steady self-respect. Chapter 18. Dating with discernment. Avoiding toxic patterns and building healthy attachment after narcissistic marriage. Dating after narcissistic marriage. Entering the dating world after a high conflict or narcissistic marriage can feel disorienting. You may feel cautious. You may feel skeptical. Trust has been strained. Perception has been challenged. Emotional safety feels fragile. Dating again is not about proving worth. It is about practicing discernment. It is about building connection without losing clarity. Rushing into new attachment can reopen wounds. Avoid using dating as emotional anesthesia. Stability must precede intimacy. Healthy dating begins with internal grounding, avoiding repetition of toxic patterns. Unhealed patterns often repeat. If you do not examine past dynamics honestly, you risk re-entering similar ones. Attraction alone cannot guide decisions. Reflect on early warning signs previously ignored. Was intensity mistaken for compatibility? Was charm mistaken for character? Identify personal vulnerabilities clearly. Need for validation. Fear of loneliness. These vulnerabilities can cloud judgment. Self-awareness strengthens discernment. Discernment prevents repetition. Do not confuse chemistry with stability. Chemistry can feel intense. Stability feels consistent. Consistency builds trust. Recognizing red flags early. Red flags often appear subtly at first. Excessive flattery too quickly. Pressure to accelerate commitment prematurely. Dismissal of your boundaries. Frequent victim narratives about all past relationships. Inconsistent stories. Pay attention to patterns rather than isolated behaviors. Observe how conflict is handled early. Notice how accountability is expressed. If disagreement immediately turns defensive or hostile, note it calmly. If boundaries are minimized, do not rationalize. Early clarity prevents later regret. Trust observable behavior over verbal promises. Actions reveal structure. Structure predicts stability. Slowing emotional investment. After prolonged instability, intense attention can feel comforting. You may crave affirmation. You may crave emotional warmth. Slow the pace intentionally. Avoid over-disclosing personal history immediately. Build trust gradually. Allow time to reveal character. Consistency over months matters more than intensity over weeks. Patience protects stability. Healthy attachment develops steadily. It does not rush urgency. It values emotional safety. Emotional discipline in early dating prevents entanglement with unstable dynamics. Choosing stability over intensity. Intensity often mimics passion, but passion without stability leads to volatility. Seek consistency first. Stable individuals respect boundaries calmly. They communicate clearly. They demonstrate accountability. Notice how disagreements are resolved. Healthy partners seek clarity. Manipulative partners escalate or deflect. Choose predictable behavior over dramatic charm. Choose reliability over excitement. Choose grounded presence over performative charisma. Stability builds long-term satisfaction. Healthy attachment development. Attachment must be built consciously after trauma. Avoid anxious over-pursuit. Avoid avoidant withdrawal. Communicate expectations openly. State boundaries early. Observe response carefully. Healthy attachment includes mutual vulnerability. It includes reciprocal effort. It includes emotional safety. Balance independence with connection. Maintain personal routines. Do not abandon self-development for romance. Attachment strengthens when autonomy remains intact. Practicing emotional transparency without oversharing. Honesty matters, but oversharing trauma prematurely can create imbalance. Share gradually. Discuss past marriage when appropriate. Avoid framing yourself solely as victim. Acknowledge personal growth honestly. Transparency builds trust. Moderation builds safety. Balanced disclosure supports healthy bonding. Your past informs your growth. It does not define your identity entirely. Evaluating compatibility thoughtfully. Compatibility extends beyond attraction. Assess values. Assess lifestyle alignment. Discuss long-term goals calmly. Observe reactions to responsibility. Evaluate emotional maturity. Compatibility includes shared expectations about communication. It includes shared expectations about boundaries. It includes mutual respect. Evaluate how stress is handled. Life includes difficulty. Stability during challenge predicts durability. Choose alignment over convenience. Guarding against trauma bonding in new relationships. Trauma bonding can reappear if unresolved. Intense highs followed by emotional distance can feel familiar. Familiarity does not equal health. If you feel drawn strongly to volatility, pause. Examine the attraction objectively. Consider whether unpredictability feels comfortable because it is known. Healthy relationships feel calmer. Calm may initially feel less exciting, but calm builds longevity. Recognize emotional addiction patterns early. Interrupt them deliberately. Choose stability consciously. Maintaining personal standards. Dating requires standards. Standards protect dignity. They prevent compromise of core values. Clarify non-negotiables clearly. Respect in communication. Financial responsibility. Emotional accountability. Consistency in behavior. Shared life vision. Do not lower standards out of loneliness. Loneliness is temporary. Compromise on values creates long-term regret. Firm standards attract compatible partners. Managing fear of vulnerability. After betrayal or manipulation, vulnerability feels risky. Walls may rise automatically. Emotional guardedness may dominate. Vulnerability must return gradually. Do not expose everything immediately, but do not close entirely. Allow trust to build through evidence. Observe consistency over time. Let actions earn openness. Healthy vulnerability strengthens connection. Balanced caution protects clarity. Balancing independence with partnership. Do not abandon independence for romance. Maintain routines. Maintain friendships. Continue physical discipline. Continue professional focus. Continue personal growth. Healthy partners respect autonomy. They do not demand isolation. They encourage balanced life. Balance strengthens attraction. It prevents emotional dependency. It reinforces identity. Learning from past patterns. Reflect honestly on lessons learned. Identify where boundaries failed. Identify where intuition was ignored. Use those insights constructively. Do not carry bitterness forward. Carry discernment forward. Growth transforms experience into wisdom. Wisdom prevents repetition. Clarity guides new choices. Patience as strength. Patience in dating reflects maturity. It signals internal stability. It reduces impulsive entanglement. Allow connection to develop slowly. Evaluate consistency. Observe alignment. Do not rush exclusivity without evidence. Do not rush emotional investment without trust. Steady pacing builds confidence. Patience filters instability naturally. Embracing hope without naivety. Hope remains essential. Bitterness blocks growth. But hope must be balanced with awareness. Trust gradually. Observe consistently. Adjust calmly. Healthy love is possible. It requires discernment. It requires discipline. Do not let past trauma eliminate openness. Let it refine judgment. Let it strengthen boundaries. Dating with discernment restores optimism grounded in clarity. From caution to confident connection. Over time, discernment becomes intuitive. You recognize patterns quickly. You respond calmly. Confidence grows through practice. You trust your perception. You uphold standards consistently. Healthy relationships begin with internal stability. They grow through mutual respect. They thrive on shared responsibility. Dating after narcissistic marriage is not about reclaiming validation. It is about building connection, rooted in clarity. It is about choosing peace over intensity. With discipline, patience, and self-awareness, you create space for healthier attachment. You approach connection grounded rather than reactive. You build relationships aligned with your restored standards and steady identity. Chapter 19. Fatherhood under pressure. Remaining present, grounded, and resilient for your children through conflict and change. Fatherhood under pressure. Fatherhood does not pause during marital conflict. It does not soften during separation. It does not disappear during legal proceedings. If anything, pressure amplifies the importance of your role. Children observe closely when stability feels uncertain. They look for emotional anchors. Under pressure, some fathers withdraw. Others become reactive. Neither response provides security. Grounded fatherhood requires discipline. It requires emotional steadiness. It requires clarity of purpose. Your responsibility extends beyond your own healing. It includes modeling resilience. It includes protecting emotional safety, remaining present during emotional turbulence. Conflict can consume attention. Legal stress can dominate mental space. Personal grief can absorb energy. Despite these pressures, presence must remain intentional. Be physically available. Be emotionally attentive. Attend school events consistently. Participate in daily routines. Engage in conversation actively. Presence communicates reliability. Reliability builds trust. Trust stabilizes children's perception of safety. Even when you feel internally unsettled, maintain outward steadiness. Children need predictability. They need reassurance through action. Supporting children through transition. If separation has occurred, children may experience confusion. They may struggle with divided households. They may fear loss of connection. Offer clear reassurance. Explain changes simply without blame. Avoid adult-level detail. Encourage them to express emotion openly. Validate their feelings calmly. Do not dismiss sadness or anger. Consistency becomes critical. Maintain routines across households when possible. Communicate schedules clearly. Transition does not eliminate stability if leadership remains strong. Communicating without emotional dumping. It can be tempting to share your frustration with your children. Avoid this instinct. They are not emotional counselors. Do not speak negatively about their mother in their presence. Do not recruit them for validation. Do not vent legal frustrations openly. Emotional dumping creates loyalty conflict. It burdens them with adult concerns. It erodes their sense of safety. Communicate at their developmental level. Focus on reassurance. Focus on consistency. Strength is restraint. Modeling resilience through conduct. Children learn resilience by observing response to difficulty. They notice whether you collapse or rise. They observe how you manage frustration. Maintain calm during transitions. Demonstrate patience under stress. Practice accountability openly. If you make mistakes, apologize sincerely. Accountability teaches maturity. Humility builds trust. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to move forward steadily. Your behavior defines their template, protecting them from triangulation. High conflict dynamics may attempt to pull children into alignment. Subtle comments may influence perception. You may hear second-hand accusations. Resist the urge to counterattack. Provide calm clarification without hostility. Reinforce their freedom to love both parents. Do not pressure them to choose sides. Do not ask for loyalty declarations. Do not involve them in adult disputes. Your refusal to triangulate preserves their emotional health. It strengthens long-term trust. Building predictable routines. Routine restores calm during uncertainty. Regular meal times. Consistent bedtimes. Structured homework sessions. Scheduled recreational activities. Reliable visitation exchanges. Predictability reduces anxiety. It builds psychological safety. It anchors emotional equilibrium. When external stability falters, internal routine compensates. Encouraging emotional intelligence. Teach emotional vocabulary. Help children name feelings accurately. Normalize emotional discussion. Encourage reflection rather than reaction. Model deep breathing during stress. Practice problem-solving calmly. Emotional intelligence strengthens resilience. It equips them for future relationships. It counters exposure to conflict. Your example shapes their internal toolkit. Maintaining authority without harshness. Pressure may tempt overcorrection. You may tighten discipline excessively. You may become rigid to compensate. Balance firmness with warmth. Set clear expectations calmly. Enforce consequences consistently. Avoid using discipline as an outlet for frustration. Separate marital conflict from parenting decisions. Maintain fairness. Authority grounded in calm earns respect. Authority driven by anger creates fear. Navigating co-parenting conflict. Disagreements with your former spouse may persist. Keep communication child-focused. Avoid revisiting marital grievances. Use structured communication tools if needed. Keep tone factual. Limit emotional content. Consistency in communication reduces tension. Clarity prevents misunderstanding. Restraint prevents escalation. Your discipline stabilizes co-parenting dynamics gradually, supporting their relationship with their mother. Even if conflict remains, children benefit from healthy connection with both parents. Do not undermine that bond. Do not insert subtle negativity. If frustration arises, process it privately. Maintain neutrality publicly. Prioritize their emotional security. Supporting their relationship does not excuse harmful behavior. It protects their developmental stability. It reinforces maturity. Children eventually discern patterns independently. Your composure allows them space to form balanced understanding. Preparing for difficult conversations. As children age, questions deepen. They may ask about the divorce. They may seek explanation. Respond truthfully but appropriately. Avoid oversharing adult conflict details. Focus on growth and responsibility. Frame separation as a decision made after careful thought. Avoid assigning blame. Highlight continued commitment to them. Difficult conversations handled calmly build trust. Preserving your own stability. Fatherhood under pressure requires internal resilience. Prioritize physical health. Maintain mental discipline. Seek support if needed. Therapeutic guidance strengthens composure. Community reinforces accountability. When you are grounded, your children feel secure. When you are reactive, they feel uncertain. Self-regulation is foundational. Personal stability fuels parental strength, creating positive shared experiences. Conflict should not dominate memories. Intentionally create positive experiences. Plan outings and activities. Engage in hobbies together. Encourage shared interests. Build traditions. Positive experiences offset stress exposure. They build emotional reserves. They reinforce connection. Memories of steady presence outweigh recollections of conflict over time. Teaching strength through example. Strength is not aggression. It is consistency. It is reliability. Show up consistently. Keep promises faithfully. Speak respectfully. Children internalize visible strength. They replicate emotional regulation patterns. They carry these lessons into adulthood. Your steady presence defines masculine influence. Long-term impact of grounded fatherhood. Children who experience at least one stable parent often develop stronger resilience. They learn that conflict does not equal collapse. They learn that composure can coexist with difficulty. Over time, your steadiness becomes reference point. Your leadership shapes their perception of adulthood. Your conduct builds legacy. Fatherhood under pressure is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about disciplined presence. Remaining present, grounded, and resilient protects more than immediate stability. It shapes generational patterns. It influences future families. Pressure reveals character. Your response defines impact. Your steady leadership builds lasting security for those who depend on you most. Chapter 20. From Survival to Sovereignty. The Thrive Framework for Structure, Discipline, and Emotional Independence. The Thrive Framework. Survival mode is reactive. It is focused on enduring chaos. It is built around minimizing damage. Thriving requires something different. It requires structure. It requires intentional design. The Thrive Framework is not about revenge. It is not about proving strength. It is about building a stable, self-directed life. Thriving means your emotional state is no longer dictated by someone else's volatility. It means your identity is no longer shaped by external criticism. It means you lead your own direction. The shift from survival to sovereignty happens gradually. It is built on daily discipline, It is reinforced through consistent standards. Structure over chaos. Chaos drains clarity. It distorts perception. It consumes energy. Structure restores order. It defines expectations. It reduces unpredictability. Begin with daily routines. Wake at a consistent hour. Schedule priorities intentionally. Create predictable rhythms for work, exercise, and rest. Limit unstructured idle time. Track progress weekly. Structure eliminates drift. It reduces impulsivity. It strengthens discipline. Your environment influences mindset. Organize your living space deliberately. Remove clutter that mirrors internal confusion. Order externally reinforces order internally. Discipline over emotional volatility. Volatility often emerges from unmanaged emotion. Discipline regulates response. It stabilizes behavior. Commit to daily physical movement. Commit to consistent sleep patterns. Commit to measured communication. When emotion spikes, pause intentionally. Breathe deliberately. Respond rather than react. Discipline builds emotional resilience. Resilience reduces impulsive choices. Impulsivity weakens stability. Every small disciplined act reinforces identity. Identity becomes anchored in consistency. Consistency strengthens confidence. Boundaries as lifestyle. Boundaries are not temporary tools. They are daily standards. They define how you live. Maintain clear limits in communication. Avoid engaging in unnecessary conflict. Disengage from disrespect calmly. Boundaries extend beyond relationships. Limit time spent in unproductive habits. Reduce exposure to negativity. Protect your mental space deliberately. Guard your schedule. Preserve your energy. Boundaries as lifestyle prevent regression into chaos. They reinforce sovereignty. They sustain peace. Emotional independence. Emotional independence is freedom from external validation dependency. It does not mean isolation. It means internal steadiness. Measure yourself by values, not applause. Seek feedback constructively, not desperately. Anchor confidence internally. Practice self-validation daily. Acknowledge discipline. Recognize progress. Emotional independence reduces anxiety. It prevents approval-seeking behavior. It strengthens leadership. When your emotional state no longer fluctuates with external moods, sovereignty begins. Financial stability as foundation. Thriving requires financial clarity. Budget intentionally. Plan long-term goals. Build emergency reserves. Eliminate unnecessary debt. Invest in skill development. Financial stability reduces stress. It increases autonomy. It strengthens decision-making freedom. Money becomes a tool for growth rather than a source of anxiety. Structure in finances reinforces structure in life. Physical strength as identity reinforcement. Physical discipline reinforces psychological stability. Exercise builds resilience. Consistency builds pride. Strength training enhances confidence. Cardio improves mental clarity. Nutrition fuels focus. Physical improvement mirrors internal growth. It symbolizes renewal. It reinforces discipline. The body becomes evidence of progress. Rebuilding social networks. Thriving includes community. Isolation weakens resilience. Healthy connection strengthens stability. Cultivate grounded friendships. Engage in structured groups. Build supportive networks. Avoid relationships that recreate volatility. Seek environments that encourage accountability. Prioritize quality over quantity. Community reinforces growth. Shared values strengthen discipline. Purpose-driven living. Purpose directs energy. Without purpose, distraction dominates. Clarity of mission strengthens resolve. Define long-term objectives clearly. Set measurable milestones. Review progress consistently. Purpose provides momentum. It reduces rumination about the past. It focuses attention forward. Thriving requires direction. Direction reduces drift. Drift invites instability. Mental clarity through continuous learning. Learning sharpens perception. It rebuilds intellectual autonomy. It enhances decision-making. Read consistently. Engage in skill development. Challenge limiting beliefs. Continuous learning prevents stagnation. It strengthens adaptability. It reinforces confidence. Clarity improves as knowledge expands. Managing setbacks without regression. Setbacks will occur. Emotional triggers may resurface. Old memories may appear. Do not interpret setbacks as failure. Return to routine immediately. Reinforce discipline deliberately. Resilience grows through repetition. Consistency rebuilds confidence. Confidence sustains progress. Thriving does not eliminate challenge. It equips you to handle it steadily. Redefining relationships moving forward. Future relationships must reflect new standards. Do not compromise clarity for companionship. Maintain boundaries consistently. Seek mutual respect. Value stability over intensity. Prioritize emotional maturity. Thriving includes relational discernment. It prevents repetition of destructive patterns. It strengthens long-term satisfaction, creating a personal code. Develop a personal code of conduct. List core values clearly. Commit to them daily. Integrity, responsibility, discipline, respect, consistency, growth. Review this code regularly. Align decisions accordingly. Let it guide behavior under pressure. A personal code anchors identity. It strengthens sovereignty. From recovery to expansion. Recovery stabilizes. Expansion builds legacy. Growth becomes intentional. Invest in long-term career development. Explore entrepreneurial pursuits if aligned. Cultivate meaningful goals. Expansion must rest on stability. Stability prevents collapse. Growth sustains purpose. Thriving transforms survival into momentum. The internal shift to sovereignty. Sovereignty means self-governance. You control your reactions. You define your standards. External chaos no longer dictates internal state. Criticism no longer defines identity. Approval no longer fuels motivation. You operate from clarity. You move from discipline. You lead from grounded confidence. Sovereignty is earned through repetition, through structure, through unwavering commitment to growth. Living the Thrive framework daily. Thriving is not a destination. It is daily practice. It is consistent action. Structure guides mornings. Discipline guides afternoons. Reflection guides evenings. Evaluate progress weekly. Adjust strategies calmly. Remain flexible, yet grounded. Each disciplined day compounds. Momentum builds gradually. Stability strengthens continuously. From survival to sovereignty is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It is steady. You have endured instability. You have rebuilt clarity. Now you govern your own direction. The Thrive framework transforms reaction into leadership. It replaces chaos with structure. It replaces volatility with discipline. You are no longer surviving emotional storms. You are building a stable, purpose-driven life, anchored in sovereignty and steady strength. Chapter 21. The High-Value Man Ascension. Mastering money, power, influence, love, and manhood. The final elevation. From awareness to authority. This chapter represents the elevation point where knowledge transforms into embodiment and theory becomes disciplined execution. The journey through this book has equipped the reader with awareness, strategic clarity, and emotional grounding. Yet awareness without structured implementation leaves potential unrealized and power dormant. The High-Value Man Ascension is the transition from surviving chaos to building order, from reacting to circumstances to architecting outcomes, and from emotional turbulence to steady masculine command over one's environment and internal state. The principles you have studied are not meant to remain intellectual insights, but are designed to be converted into structured habits, measurable growth, and daily standards that recalibrate your entire life trajectory. The gateway to mastery. From book to operating system. The book you have completed serves as the gateway to transformation, but transformation requires systems, accountability, and progressive expansion of capacity. The High Value Man Masterclass online course is designed as a comprehensive operating system that expands the philosophical and psychological frameworks of this book into a structured program of action. Where the book provides awareness and foundational recalibration, the masterclass provides implementation, drills, frameworks, measurable milestones, and performance standards that convert intention into tangible masculine results. The Ascension phase is not about inspiration alone, but about installing a new internal operating code that governs money, decisions, relationship standards, social posture, emotional responses, and long-term legacy construction. Module 1. The Identity of a High-Value Man. Developing discipline, purpose, and masculine identity. Identity determines behavior long before strategy determines outcome, and a man who has not clarified his identity will drift between borrowed values and external expectations. This module establishes discipline as the cornerstone of masculine sovereignty and purpose as the directional compass that eliminates confusion. A high-value man is not defined by applause or attraction, but by alignment between his standards, his actions, and his long-term mission. Discipline becomes the daily proof of identity, and purpose becomes the filter that rejects distractions, emotional manipulation, and time-wasting behaviors. Masculine identity is constructed through intentional habits, controlled speech, decisive action, and the refusal to compromise on self-respect. Module 2. Money, status, and economic dominance. Building financial strength and economic leverage. Financial strength is not merely about income, but about leverage, optionality, and freedom from dependency. Economic dominance begins with mastering budgeting, investing, asset acquisition, and entrepreneurial positioning. But it expands into understanding how money influences social positioning and relational dynamics. A high-value man understands that financial discipline stabilizes emotional life, and that economic power creates negotiating strength in every sphere of influence. This module transforms money from a survival tool into a strategic instrument that funds vision, protects family, and expands generational opportunity. Wealth creation becomes a responsibility rather than an ego exercise, and status becomes a byproduct of consistent value creation. Module 3. Power and influence in social hierarchies. Understanding leadership and influence dynamics. Power operates within every environment, whether acknowledged or denied, and men who fail to understand hierarchy often become subjects rather than leaders. Influence is earned through competence, calm authority, and strategic communication, and it is sustained through consistency and credibility. This module teaches the dynamics of social positioning, reputation management, boundary enforcement, and leadership posture. A high-value man learns to command respect without theatrics and to influence outcomes without coercion. Leadership becomes an extension of internal order, and influence becomes the natural result of disciplined presence and strategic awareness. Module 4. Courtship, attraction, standards, and selection. Selecting high-quality women with confidence and clarity. Courtship is not a pursuit of validation, but a process of evaluation guided by standards and discernment. Attraction must be paired with clarity, and chemistry must be filtered through compatibility, values, and long-term alignment. This module reframes dating from emotional vulnerability to strategic selection, ensuring that a man does not confuse attention with compatibility. A high-value man establishes standards before engagement and maintains composure regardless of outcome. Confidence is demonstrated not through pursuit, but through selective interest and consistent boundaries that protect emotional and financial stability. Module 5. The High-Value Boyfriend. Creating attraction and emotional leadership in relationships. Emotional leadership is the stabilizing force that sustains attraction beyond novelty and appearance. A high-value boyfriend demonstrates consistency, protection, direction, and decisive communication without becoming emotionally reactive or excessively accommodating. Attraction thrives where stability exists, and emotional leadership prevents chaos from eroding connection. This module develops relational awareness, strategic vulnerability, conflict navigation skills, and the maintenance of mystery and respect. The high-value boyfriend understands that emotional steadiness is more powerful than dramatic gestures, and that consistency is more attractive than unpredictability. Module 6, Marriage and Husbandhood. Leading a strong and stable household. Marriage demands structure, foresight, and shared mission, and husbandhood requires a man to anchor his household through strength and strategic direction. A high-value husband leads through example rather than dominance, and creates systems that protect finances, communication, and long-term planning. Stability is cultivated through proactive leadership, conflict resolution frameworks, and unwavering commitment to growth. This module strengthens the masculine capacity to manage pressure, maintain authority, and build a partnership rooted in respect and shared accountability. Module 7, Fatherhood and Generational Legacy. Building a legacy through family and leadership. Fatherhood expands masculine responsibility beyond personal ambition into generational stewardship. Legacy is not inherited by chance, but constructed through intentional modeling, disciplined mentorship, and long-term financial and moral planning. This module teaches how to lead children through presence, example, and structured guidance while maintaining authority and emotional stability. A high-value man understands that his habits will echo across generations, and that his discipline today determines the strength of tomorrow's lineage. Module 8, Emotional Intelligence and Self-Control. Mastering discipline, composure, and emotional stability. Emotional intelligence strengthens masculine authority by preventing reactive decisions and destructive impulses. Self-control is the foundation of leadership, because a man who cannot command himself cannot command respect. This module refines emotional awareness, impulse regulation, stress management, and composure under pressure. Emotional stability becomes the stabilizing force in relationships, business, and leadership environments, and it protects a man from manipulation, escalation, and regret-driven decisions. Module 9, Physical Presence and Sexual Market Value. Improving fitness, style, and masculine presence. Physical presence communicates discipline long before words are spoken, and a man's body reflects his commitment to self-mastery. Fitness, grooming, posture, and wardrobe contribute to confidence and social positioning. This module transforms physical improvement into a strategic advantage rather than a vanity pursuit. Sexual market value is strengthened through health, style refinement, confident movement, and controlled energy. Presence becomes a projection of internal order, and attractiveness becomes a reflection of disciplined living. Module 10, Legacy, Influence, and Manhood Mastery. Building a life of influence, leadership, and generational impact. The final module integrates identity, wealth, influence, relationships, emotional control, physical presence, and generational responsibility into a unified masculine framework. Manhood mastery is not a temporary achievement, but a lifelong commitment to growth, leadership, and contribution. Influence expands beyond personal circles into professional domains and community impact. Legacy becomes measurable through financial stability, relational strength, disciplined character, and positive generational inheritance. The complete operating system. Transformation through structured execution. The High Value Man Masterclass transforms this book's principles into daily systems, weekly challenges, accountability checkpoints, and measurable milestones. The Ascension is not an abstract concept, but a structured path of disciplined execution that recalibrates every dimension of life. The book has served as the intellectual and emotional awakening, and the masterclass provides the architecture for sustained masculine dominance in identity, finances, relationships, leadership, and legacy. The High Value Man Ascension is not about ego elevation, but about stable authority, consistent growth, and disciplined execution. that positions a man to thrive across every sphere of influence for the rest of his life.
Introduction to the Narcissistic Wife Survive and Thrive Guide. From emotional survival to clarity, stability, and personal power.
The Narcissistic Wife Survive and Thrive Guide is a structured roadmap for men, navigating emotional manipulation, gaslighting, conflict cycles, and psychological instability within marriage. It exposes subtle control patterns that slowly erode confidence and identity, while equipping readers with enforceable boundaries, communication discipline, and emotional regulation systems. Rather than encouraging retaliation, the guide teaches calm authority and strategic leadership. It focuses on nervous system stability and strategic leadership under pressure. From protecting children to strengthening financial awareness and legal preparedness, each chapter builds practical structure to move from reactive survival into personal power. The Thrive framework shifts men through daily routines, identity rebuilding, and a defined code. Recovery evolves into expansion as readers reclaim purpose, clarity, and long-term direction. This is not emotional venting. It is emotional training. It replaces chaos with steady strength. Purchase this digital playbook today or gain access via our New School Wisdom Gold membership. It's time for you to level up and become New School wise. Let's get started. You stayed to the end of this video. That tells me something important about you. If this gave you clarity, hit like. If you're committed to growth, subscribe. If you're serious about becoming disciplined, empowered, and respected, turn on notifications. Average men scroll and troll. High-value men leave comments and engage with purpose. Stay New School wise. See you in the next video.